It begins in 1861. I have just inherited the throne of the Netherlands. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 626, A Shocking Moment on Sumatra. If it weren't for Crown Prince William's reminder, the entire German Empire's top leaders would not have thought that in just 10 years from 1857 to 1866, Prussia actually lost more than 60,000 people to the Netherlands. So when William I asked how many people were lost to the Netherlands in the third 5-year period from 1867 to 1871, everyone turned their attention to Crown Prince William. From 18,567 to 1871, the number of people from the German Empire who immigrated to the Netherlands reached 110,000. Crown Prince William's shocking words made the entire Berlin Palace suddenly audible. Aren't you curious about the fact that the Prussian royal palace has become the German Empire, but the German Empire has lost more population? Crown Prince William spoke out what everyone was thinking, so the Minister of Military Affairs Ron asked, "Yes, why?" The reason is very simple. Because between 1867 and 1871, the annexation of other countries of the German Confederation made the people of these countries dissatisfied with Prussia to the extreme. Moltke, the Crown Prince, said that these countries were dissatisfied with Prussia and were unwilling to accept Prussian rule, so they looked around and found the Netherlands to be the most suitable, so the Netherlands became a good place for these people to immigrate. Yes, the British are too arrogant and look down on others, so immigrants there are only second-class citizens. Because of the Prussian-Danish War, the Austro-Hungarian Empire would also be suspicious of them, fearing that they were our spies, and dared not accept them in large numbers. Minister of Military Affairs Ron asked, "Then France is not bad either?" Crown Prince William smiled and reminded, "Don't forget, under the rule of Napoleon's family, the French Empire was actually more xenophobic. Napoleon III maintained his rule with the support of existing nobles and capitalists. If he supported these people to share their food, Napoleon III would face a joint boycott by these people. The consequences would be disastrous at that time. Napoleon III would not be so stupid." Pa. William I laughed. "Yes, William, you are right," he said to Bismarck, as early as 3 years ago. Prime Minister Bismarck, and I guessed belatedly that William IV used the wars among European countries to seize population and make up for the population shortage in the Netherlands. However, at that time, the Netherlands had completed the best period for population to make up for itself through immigration, so the Prime Minister and I regretted it, but there was no way. Little William, you were able to think of this problem. It seems that you are really attentive in observation. 110,000. Although I knew a lot before, I didn't expect it to exceed 100,000. Before the Austro-Prussian War, the Prussian-Danish War caused the war-weary people in Prussia to flee Prussia. After the Austro-Prussian War, some Prussians who originally supported maintaining friendship with Austria also left us. Most of the 110,000 people should be these people. The other half are probably people like Karl Benz and Dahlem, who belong to the countries that were annexed by us, such as the Kingdom of Hanover and the Kingdom of Bavaria. I'm curious. From 1867 to 1871, the population loss exceeded 100,000 and reached 110,000. What about from 1872 to 1876? Although William I seemed to be indifferent, he did not hide his trembling voice this time. Yes, the more population loss in the German Empire, the more it represented the confrontation with the Netherlands, which was to hurt itself and nourish the enemy, the Netherlands. It reached 110,000 in the last 5 years. How many will it be this time? In the Far East, in the Medan City Hall on the island of Sumatra in the Kingdom of the Netherlands. William IV sat on his seat with a big horse and golden sword. On his left and right, Jan Simskerk, the governor of the East Indies, later Indonesia, sat on his right. On his left, the Minister of the Interior, General, the Minister of Industry, Wim Kott, the Director of the Royal Netherlands Intelligence Service, Bill Charles, the Director of the Netherlands National Security Council and the Atlantic Affairs Coordinator, Cantor, and the Indian Ocean and Pacific Coordinator, Akshi, accompanied him on the visit. Below Jan Simskerk, the Governor of the East Indies, sat the Speaker of the Provincial Parliament of the East Indies, Palu, the mayor and the speaker of Medan, and other local officials. The population here is in accordance with Your Majesty's request in recent years. The natives from all over the country are concentrated in one place. In a decentralized mode, the natives from Africa and Australia are filled here. The structure is 600,000 local natives, 200,000 Australian mainland natives, 300,000 African natives, 450,000 Dutch people among the whites, and 50,000 people come from European countries. Jan Simpskirk reported the population structure of Sumatra to William IV in detail. William IV nodded to the structure of the natives first, then frowned and asked, 50,000 white people from other European countries are here? Which countries are they from? This is what William IV would learn about in detail after he went to each place. For him, this cannot be sloppy. Otherwise, there will be no trouble. Jane Simpskirk did not expect William IV to ask this question. He was stunned at first, and then replied, the Swedes have the most people, occupying 20,000, the German Empire has 16,000 people, and the remaining small countries on the Balkan Peninsula have 6,000 people. Denmark has also reached 3,000 people. There are also many from southern European countries such as Spain. Prussia has reached 16,000 people. William IV frowned. Hearing this number, a shadow appeared in William IV's heart. In the previous life, the United States was the largest immigrant population occupied by the Germans. Although the United States lost the First and Second World Wars, it benefited the most, but the population gradually changed from the British to the Germans. It can be said that the British won in Europe, but in the United States and America, the Germans won by infiltration. The population of Sumatra is 1.6 million, of which Germans account for 16,000, or about 1%. But if the 1.1 million indigenous people are deducted, Germans account for 3% of the 500,000 white people, making them the second largest race of white people on the island. However, these Germans currently strongly dislike Prussia, and therefore have no sense of belonging to the current German Empire. But this is a big source of danger for the Netherlands. However, the Germans in the Kingdom of the Netherlands are quite powerful now. If they are treated discriminatorily, William IV will be reluctant to do so. Because the talents that the Netherlands has seized from the entire Germany through various means of wooing, threatening and tempting will be top talents in the future. Not to mention Carl Benz and Daimler in the automobile group, there are countless other talents in scientific development. On the list in William IV's hand, there are no less than 20 people who will become Nobel Prize winners in literature, physics, medicine, chemistry, etc. This does not include the German talents hidden in Dutch society and the Germans who are preparing to immigrate to the Netherlands. Making the Netherlands' reputation that it does not like too many Germans to immigrate to the Netherlands will be a huge loss in the later stage. However, what William IV did not know was that at this time, in the Berlin Palace, the capital of the German Empire, the hometown of the Germans he was concerned about, a thorough investigation meeting on his population plunder was being launched. He did not know that his plunder of the German population would soon face a challenge. Chapter 627 The Rise of the Dutch Socialist Party. The city of Medan on the island of Sumatra in the south of the Strait of Malacca is in North Sumatra. It is also the third largest city on the island of Sumatra, second only to the second largest city of Lampung in the southeastern tip and the largest city of Palembang in the east. The total population of Medan is 400,000, consisting of Bataks, Javanese, Malays, and Germans. We Dutch came later and now occupy 21% of the population, while the German Confederation accounts for 3%, most of whom are engaged in business and trade. The current population composition of Medan is similar to that of the entire island of Sumatra. The main advantage here is that it is close to the ports along the Strait of Malacca. The port of Medan competes with Ipoh, the second largest city in the British-occupied Malayan colony across the strait. It's just that the Netherlands has a closer relationship with European countries than the United Kingdom. At present, when European and American countries stop for repairs in the Strait of Malacca, more than 40% of the ships are docked in our Medan city, rather than the Ipoh city area across the sea from the northern Malay Island. Together with the 20% occupied by the port of Banda Aceh, the westernmost port of Sumatra, 60% of the ships sailing through the Strait of Malacca currently dock here. Ipoh City, which is opposite the Strait of Malacca, only occupies 10%, but because Malacca City also occupies 10%, the southern Singapore Island port, which the British originally competed with us for, has a superior location and occupies 20%. These three cities are comparable to Medan. The governor of the East Indies, James Sisko, had a very serious expression on his face and said, "In the last century, Britain and the Netherlands were very fierce in the competition for the Strait of Malacca. In the end, the two countries reached a compromise in 1786. The Netherlands withdrew from the Malay Peninsula and Britain withdrew from Sumatra Island to eliminate the dispute between the two countries in the Far East. Who would have thought that the two countries would have a conflict here again, and judging from the situation, the dispute is even bigger and involves a wider range." Palu, the chairman of the East Indies Provincial Parliament, also sighed and said, "At present, the competition between Britain and the Netherlands for influence in the Southeast Peninsula has reached a white-hot stage. Britain has taken advantage of its occupation of most of Myanmar and the Malay Peninsula to rapidly expand its influence in the Southeast Peninsula." Madame Mayor Trucy glanced at him, and then retorted, "I don't agree with the statement of the chairman of Palu Provincial Parliament. Look at the map. Now Britain has occupied the western and southern peripheries of the Kingdom of Siam. In addition to the eastern Cambodia and southern Laos occupied by France, and the base camp of North and South Vietnam, the Kingdom of Siam is almost surrounded. This is also the reason why the Kingdom of Siam has frequently tried to win over the Netherlands to deal with Britain in recent years. If it were not for the division of the French Empire into North and South, which caused the power of Napoleon III to be castrated, the Second French Empire currently chose to maintain a peaceful and stable relationship with the Kingdom of Siam. Otherwise, the Kingdom of Siam might have already faced a double-sided attack. So now facing a British colonial behemoth that is connected to the Southeast Asian Peninsula and the Indian subcontinent, this is our disadvantage, but why is it not our advantage?" William IV was very interested in Trucy, because Trucy was known to be very powerful in Sumatra, and the news even spread to him in Melbourne, the new capital of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Because of his strong appeal, Medan City Council Speaker Raymond is also his ally, but to be more precise, the two are from the same party. Thinking of this, William IV couldn't help but think of the current political situation in the Netherlands. Medan Mayor Trucy came from the Socialist Party, the third largest party in the Netherlands after the Liberal Party and the Christian Party. The Dutch Socialist Party was established with the support of William IV in 1870. The current leaders of the party are the former Belgian Prime Minister Dan Uding, Speaker of the House Bide as chairman, and Marie Philip as the party whip. It can be said that the party is a new party formed by a group of Dutch people after the return of several major provinces in Belgium. As 8 years passed, the Kingdom of the Netherlands changed from the Liberal Party and the Christian Party to the Socialist Party, which now forms the three major forces in the Dutch political arena. In the 1870 Dutch Prime Minister election, Thorbecke stepped down after completing his 9-year term after William IV chose to postpone the election for 1 year. The Dutch election was held in 1871. At the beginning of the year, the first Dutch Socialist Party in Europe was established by three former Belgian political giants, Darnton, Bide, and Marie Philip. The three of them brought the Netherlands to review the 1.5 million population of each province from Belgium at this time. It had a very high popularity when it was just established. The Liberal Party had 200,000 members, the Christian Party had 150,000, and the Socialist Party had 70,000 popularity before the election. Originally, this was amazing enough, but no one expected that at this time, the Socialist Party actually got the recognition of Jan Simzisko, the governor of the East Indies province. He joined the party in May before the election in August 1871, regardless of everyone's surprise, and became the first member of the Socialist Party with the status of governor of the Netherlands. For a time, not only the Netherlands was shocked, but even in Europe, it caused a tsunami-like wave. His joining made the Socialist Party's position completely stable. Then, for reasons that were not known to be deep in the human heart, the Socialist Party actually welcomed a large number of new members in June and July 1871, and most of them were from the Far East. William IV looked at Trucy and Raymond in front of him. If he remembered correctly, Raymond seemed to be of Swedish descent. The Socialist Party became the party that benefited the most after European immigrants to the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Because of its youth and the experience of Dan Uding and others in Belgium, it was compared with the conservative Christian Party and the ruling Liberal Party with inherent power. Whether it was the room for advancement or the degree of closeness, the Socialist Party was more popular among these people than the other two parties. Of course, the natives are now divided into two factions. Now the Socialist Party seems to have blocked its sights from the natives, and is obviously trying to use the votes of the natives as a breakthrough to obtain the inherent votes of the ruling Netherlands. However, the indigenous people gained a lot of power under the liberals, so the indigenous people still support the liberals first, but the Socialist Party also gained a lot of support, which is why Trussi and Raymond were elected in Medan, because many indigenous people here are said to support the Socialist Party. This is one of the most stable territories of the Socialist Party since the local election and parliamentary election in 1873. On January 10, 1872, the new president took office. On January 20 in the United States, the new Prime Minister Gerrit de Vries, who is also a liberal, took office and formed a new cabinet. The cabinet members were almost unchanged, obviously to maintain the ruling base. This has been the case since the second term in 1876. It can be said that the Netherlands has a stable political situation and rapid economic and social development under the 4 consecutive stable terms of the Liberal Party. Chapter 628, the sphere of influence of the 3 major political parties in the Netherlands. However, William IV knew that with the rise of the Socialist Party, it seemed that the Socialist Party was like a money-eating beast, and began to set its sights on the natives of the Netherlands, as well as the returning Belgian Dutch, new European immigrants, and some natives. With their support, the Christian Party was almost unable to maintain its second party status, and the Liberals might find it difficult to continue their 5th term. Moreover, William IV recently heard that it seemed that the Socialist Party had begun to contact the Christian Party, and if neither party had a chance of winning alone next year, the 2 parties seemed to intend to form a coalition government for the first time to interrupt the Liberal Party's formation of the 5th cabinet government. When William IV was calculating, he didn't know that in Buckingham Palace, the hostess of Buckingham Palace was discussing him and his Kingdom of the Netherlands with the British Empire's Prime Minister Clayton. Among the 12 provinces of the Netherlands currently controlled by the Netherlands in Europe, the 3 provinces of North Holland, Friesland, Drenthe and Groningen, have become the territory of the Christian Party. The 2 provinces of West Holland and North Holland in the West Holland, the 2 provinces of Utrecht and Flevoland in the Central Holland, the 2 provinces of the Eastern Netherlands, consisting of Overijssel and Gelderland, are the fundamental bases of the Liberal Party. The provinces of Zeeland, North Brabant and North Limburg in the south of the Netherlands are where the Liberal Party and the Socialist Party compete. The 5 provinces of Belgium that returned to the party are almost all in the hands of the Socialist Party. Antwerp is the base camp of the Socialist Party, and South Limburg, Flemish Brabant, East Flanders and West Flanders are also the main territories of the party. Overseas, the 3 territories of Aruba, Curaçao and Sint Maarten are the traditional territories of the Christian Party. In addition, the 4 provinces of North Australia, South Australia and New Guinea are also in the hands of the Christian Party. The Liberals control 7 provinces: William Province, formerly Victoria, Queensland, New Wales, New Guinea, Hawaii, South Pacific, and Alaska Peninsula. The Socialist Party, East Indies Province, mainly in Sumatra, Java, East Mandan, and Sulawesi in present-day Indonesia, Tasmania, Maluku Islands, and East Mandan. In Africa, the Christian Party controls Kenya Province, while the Liberal Party controls Congo Province, Tanzania Province, Uganda and Rwanda Province, Zambia and North Zimbabwe Province, etc. The Socialist Party competes with the Liberal Party in Madagascar Province and has developed its own power in the southern part of the island. The North Mozambique Province has become a stronghold of the Socialist Party on the African continent. The party has also expanded its influence to Zambia and Zimbabwe. The Socialist Party has even attracted more natives than the Liberal Party because of its immigrant elements. The Kingdom of the Netherlands has now formed a balanced situation under the competition of influence among the 3 parties. The Socialist Party is a little younger, so it is not as powerful as the 2 parties. Unlike the arrogant Disraeli of the Tories, the slightly more modest Whig Clayton's gentlemanly appearance made Queen Victoria very appreciative. This is why the Queen has always liked to support the Whig Party. Clayton naturally saw the Queen's concentration, so he, who was in charge of the cabinet for the 3rd time, set in high spirits. Currently, the highest legislature in the Netherlands continues to implement a bicameral parliament. The upper house, also called the Senate, has 77 senators, 2 senators from each of the 38 provinces plus 1 senator from the capital Melbourne, who are elected by each province. The lower house, that is the House of Representatives, is composed of 220 members. 1 member of the House of Representatives is elected for every 100,000 people, and is directly elected by the people like the United States. The term of office is 4 years, and half of them are replaced every 2 years. The Netherlands stipulates that 18 years old is the legal age for citizens with voting rights, but the election objects are different from those in the United Kingdom. In the Netherlands, political parties rather than individual candidates are elected, that is, the Dutch people elect their favorite political parties, and then the party announces the candidates internally and the candidates are appointed to the positions they choose. Clayton saw that Queen Victoria was listening patiently, and he understood that this was the rhythm that aroused the Queen's interest, so he continued, before, the Liberal Party was the only one in the Netherlands, suppressing the Christian Party, so the Liberal Party won the general election for 4 consecutive terms starting from 1861. Now, with the Socialist Party established in 1871 and growing for 8 years, many European politicians predict that there may not be any party large enough to win more than half of the seats in the Dutch parliament alone in the next Dutch election. Therefore, the phenomenon of the 3 major parties jointly forming a cabinet government may become a common thing in the future. Therefore, I think the British Empire should pay attention to the changes in the Netherlands and its impact on the UK in the future. Queen Victoria nodded and said, William IV may have anticipated this situation, so as early as 1875, he pushed the Dutch Senate and the House of Commons to pass a number of bills in succession. Among them, the bill that could form a coalition cabinet attracted much attention at the time caused a sensation. Now it seems that he has foresight. The formation of a coalition cabinet in the Netherlands may be considered by many countries to be disadvantageous to the government, because the more people there are, the more chaotic it is to pay attention to the scene of going south, but they may have forgotten one thing. It is precisely because of the coalition cabinet that the consistency of Dutch policies can be implemented more effectively. Claxton also praised, Your Majesty is right. Sometimes I have to admire His Majesty William IV. He always finds out where the problem is in time and remedies it in time. For foreign investors who are not familiar with the local business environment in the Netherlands, the stable political environment in the Netherlands is indeed conducive to the formulation of long-term business goals. The multi-party democratic political system of the Netherlands, coupled with a consensus-based legislative system, is quite beneficial for investment, business operations, and innovation activities. Clayton suddenly raised his head and said, At present, the UK is now divided into 2 factions headed by the aristocratic conservatives and the capitalist class. Although this has been the case for decades or hundreds of years, it seems that the UK has not changed much in the past few years. On the contrary, the Netherlands is advancing with the times and constantly evolving. Your Majesty, I am worried that if the UK does not join the Dutch model just in case, will the UK face a major crisis when the 2-party system is fed up with the British? Queen Victoria looked at him in shock. She had thought that many people would propose a multi-party system to her, but she had never thought that she would receive this idea from the 2 beneficiaries, Clayton, the leader of the Whig Party, and Disraeli, the leader of the Tory Party. Was Clayton asking this sincerely? Or was it a test? Queen Victoria's eyes could not help but fall into deep thought. Chapter 629 The New Master of the White House. North America, the United States of America. The current owner of the White House is Stephen Douglas, the leader of the Democratic Party, who was Lincoln's old rival. After Lincoln was assassinated in 1866, Andrew Johnson actually occupied 2 terms as president, and together with the 2 years he succeeded Lincoln, he ruled the United States of America for a total of 10 years, which made President Stephen Douglas's wish come to nothing. In the election at the end of 1876, Stephen Douglas, on behalf of the Democratic Party, finally defeated Republican James Speed, who had served as Secretary of the Treasury for 12 years, and another Republican candidate Rutherford Hayes, the winner of the 1876 presidential election, and took office on January 20, 1877 to become the new President of the United States of America. This was also the first time in 16 years that the Democratic Party defeated the Republican Party and regained the presidency. Since the restoration of the Netherlands, the Constitution was promulgated on March 29, 1814, and the Constitution was amended in 1848, stipulating that the Netherlands is a hereditary constitutional monarchy. Legislative power belongs to the King and Parliament, and executive power belongs to the King and the Cabinet. The Privy Council is the highest state consultation body and is responsible to the Parliament. The head is the monarch himself, and other members are appointed by the monarch. The Prime Minister and ministers of the Cabinet are elected by the Parliament and are responsible to the Parliament. The Dutch Parliament is divided into the Dutch Upper House, Senators, and the Lower House, House of Representatives. The lower house has legislative power, and the Senate has the right to agree or refuse to approve bills, but cannot propose or amend bills. They check and balance each other and form a balance. These are still very beneficial for the Dutch royal family to retain power, so William IV has never changed. The only thing that has changed is the power of the Dutch political parties. For example, in 1875, under his secret promotion, the Socialist Party rose strongly and demanded parliamentary reform and obtained the consent of other liberal parties and Christian parties to form a joint cabinet government, which is a huge foreshadowing. In the past, various parties in the Western world formed alliances to form forces that obtained more than 50% of the votes to form a coalition cabinet government. The rise of the Socialist Party is an opportunity for promotion. After all, the Liberal Party has been prime minister for 4 consecutive terms, which has already involved threatening the power of the royal family. People tend to think that they will always be their own after sitting on the stool for a long time, but they often forget that the stool is only temporary and can be moved at any time. If the Liberal Party continues to rule for 20 years, it will pose a power challenge to William IV's royal power, which William IV naturally does not want to see. This is why he came to Madon this time. He's expressing his attitude to the Liberal Party and the Christian Party, that is, he is inclined to support the Socialist Party. Although the Socialist Party has not gained a foothold in the Australian continent and obtained the territory of various provinces, it has already won the Tasmanian Island Province, and has also won the Maluku Islands Province, the East Indies Province, the Pacific Islands Province, etc. Occupying the 4 sides of the Australian continent, this makes William IV feel like the countryside is surrounding the city. Moreover, although the Socialist Party has not won the Governor-General and Provincial Speaker seats above the provincial level, let alone the senator seats in various provinces, the Socialist Party has also won many elections at the municipal and town levels in various provinces and grassroots management. As everyone knows, the second largest city in Canberra, New South Wales, where Sydney is located, has been successfully elected by the Socialist Party and won the mayor and speaker seats, and more than 60% of the city councillors are occupied by the Socialist Party. It can be said that this has created a great opportunity in the territory of the Christian Party. The Socialist Party also has the upper hand in Geraldton, the second largest city after Perth, the capital of Western Australia, which is controlled by the Liberal Party. The city was also won by the Socialist Party in the last midterm councillor and mayor elections. In short, the Socialist Party on the Australian mainland seems to be slowly eroding the cities and towns in remote areas of Australia that were originally the territory of the Christian Party and the Liberal Party. Thomas A. Hendricks, the former Senate Whip of the American Democratic Party, became the new Secretary of State of the Stephen Douglas government last year. He has just analyzed the intelligence from the Netherlands in detail. Some things about the political system of the Netherlands. The Netherlands currently has 38 provinces and 1 capital district, so the Netherlands currently has 39 intermediate courts, that is provincial district courts, and 390 grassroots courts at the municipal level, which is 10 times the number. In addition, there are 5 appeals courts and 1 Supreme Court. In addition, the Netherlands has also established several special courts such as military courts and administrative courts. The grassroots courts are responsible for winning general legal and criminal cases, and the intermediate courts are responsible for hearing more serious civil and criminal cases. Therefore, these 2 levels of courts are both courts of first instance. The Court of Appeal is specifically responsible for hearing appeals, protests and other cases. It is precisely because the Netherlands has the most complete court system in the world that when the Hague International Court was established in The Hague, even major countries such as the United Kingdom could not find fault, because the Netherlands has the most advanced court system in the West. Now, with the improvement in the past 8 years, even Britain, the German Empire, formerly Prussia, France, Tsarist Russia, Austria-Hungary, etc. are copying the Dutch court system for their own use. Our United States of America is also learning the Dutch system. It can be said that the Netherlands has become a net exporter of advanced systems. All countries are learning how to govern from the Netherlands. The influence of the Netherlands has naturally increased, and its international prestige is getting higher and higher. With the precedent of the gradual coalition cabinet government opened by the Netherlands in 1875 passed by the Dutch House of Representatives and Senate, the strength of the Socialist Party has greatly increased. There are currently 8 major political parties in the Netherlands. They are the strongest Liberal Party, the second Christian Party, and the third Socialist Party. In addition to these three major parties, after the passage of the Party Joint Cabinet Bill in 1875, the Netherlands has seen the emergence of no less than 5 small political parties, including the Labour Party, the People's Party, and the Civil Rights Party, in the past 3 years. These Dutch political parties all implement the leadership responsibility system, with a party leader responsible for daily party affairs. Secretary of State Thomas reminded President Stephen Douglas, Mr. President, the Kingdom of the Netherlands has become a white knight in the Western world, exuding their influence everywhere. Although the United States of America has developed rapidly in recent years, compared with the Netherlands, we seem to be lagging behind a lot, especially during the Republican Andrew Johnson cabinet government, which was closer to the Netherlands' economy and diplomacy than during the Lincoln period. Although we have benefited a lot from the United States of America, we have also lost a lot. Stephen Douglas likes to remain as deep as ever, and it is always difficult to figure out his thoughts. He said, "Do you think it's time for the United States of America to break up with the Netherlands?" Chapter 630, The British Secretary of State Who is Not Popular in the United States. Stephen Douglas had a nickname called Little Giant in the political arena of the United States of America. Although he was short, only 1.62 meters tall, he had a very strong influence in the Congress of the United States of America, and almost threatened the power of Andrew Johnson as the President of the Senate when he was the Vice President. Schuyler Colfax, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, was also suppressed by Stephen and many congressmen because he offended him. In the end, it was with the support of the Dutch congressman that he was able to escape from danger. It can be seen how strong Stephen Douglas's ability is, so he has such a nickname. He was born in Brandon, Vermont on April 13, 1813. He lost his father at a young age and was raised by his uncle. Therefore, his psychology was a little dark, but he was only smart and sensible. Especially after entering the political arena, he quickly showed extraordinary talent. The failure to compete with Lincoln for the governor of Illinois made him suffer a setback for the first time, interrupting his invincible road. It can be said that his repeated attacks on Lincoln were all for revenge. Some people even thought that he was involved in Lincoln's assassination, but in the end he was completely out of it, which shows that he knew how to protect himself. Because of this, Secretary of State Thomas and Stephen have known each other for many years, but they have never figured out each other's thoughts. Just like now, it is clear that there is a lot of consensus within the Democratic Party, that is, don't put all your eggs in one basket, and propose that the economic, military, diplomatic and other interests of the United States should not stand on the side of the Netherlands. But it has been 2 months, and President Stephen still has not made any moves, which makes many people in the Democratic Party dissatisfied, so he, the Secretary of State, was pushed out to seek a solution from Stephen. There is no way, who told him that he is British, and he is also the leader of the British Republican faction. The world is paying attention to the fact that Britain and the Netherlands are competing for interests in the Indian Ocean, and the United States is no exception. At present, the Dutch Stephen Douglas seems to be the object of suspicion of many people in the Democratic Party, because Andrew Johnson of the Republican Party is of Dutch descent, and Stephen is also of Dutch descent. If Stephen is successfully re-elected in the 1880 election and also serves as president for 8 years, then the Dutch will be in power in the United States for 18 consecutive years. A generation is enough to change many things, so it seems that many people in the Democratic Party are trying to prevent such a thing from happening. The most direct one is that in the 1880 election, the Democratic Party will introduce a new candidate, and Thomas is hinted to be the successor of Stephen Douglas. Thomas is naturally ambitious, so he can hardly refuse such a pie-in-the-sky temptation, and he bites the bullet and appears in front of him. Stephen Douglas looks at Thomas A. Hendricks, and a faint smile appears on his face, which makes Thomas' heart jump. The man in front of me is a well-known smiling tiger. When he smiles, it may not mean that he is happy, but that he is angry and laughing out of anger. Therefore, Thomas gritted his teeth and answered, "The Netherlands currently occupies the Hawaiian Islands that we originally planned to purchase from the Russian Empire in 1863, and intercepted Secretary of State Seward's annexation plan on the Alaska issue that year." Obviously, the contradiction between the Netherlands and us has been foreshadowed. As he spoke, he looked up and said, "The Netherlands is no longer the Netherlands that needed the United States of America as its most important and valued ally. Now the Netherlands has frequent warships in the entire Pacific Ocean, with the Alaska Peninsula, Hawaiian Islands, South Pacific Islands as its sphere of influence, and a strong division of power between the East and West Pacific on both sides. Not long ago, a Dutch fleet even appeared in California, the west coast of the United States of America. Thomas seemed to be arguing his case. He said in a loud voice, "Mr. President Stephen, Britain and the Netherlands are currently competing in the Indian Ocean. This is a great opportunity for the United States of America to break free from the influence of the Netherlands in the Eastern Pacific. I and many others believe that if we get a little closer to Britain at this time, the Netherlands will make concessions to us, at least in the North Pacific. The Netherlands will not use Alexander II and the British Columbia we occupied to exert offshore influence." Stephen Douglas sat leisurely in his seat, tapping the table lightly with his right middle finger. The sound was like water dripping from a rock into a pool, with a clear and orderly rhythm. Thomas was a man of subtle observation. While he secretly cursed his British compatriots for pushing him out, he was also uneasy about himself for being so stupid as to stand up and provoke President Stephen. "If this is your opinion, I think the position of Secretary of State seems to need a change," Stephen said shockingly. His middle finger paused on the table, and continued with a dissatisfied and sarcastic look on his face. "Only ordinary people will see the Anglo-Dutch dispute as a plan to take advantage of the rise of the United States of America after the Netherlands is controlled, but that is the perspective of ordinary people." Ignoring Thomas's astonishment, Stephen Douglas said disdainfully, "Seward was eyeing the Hawaiian Islands. That place is not bad, but that's just good. Andrew Johnson saw the essence, and we have to admit that his vision is also very sharp, just like our ancestors in the 1920s and 1930s of this century. In fact, for the current development of the United States of America, overseas is actually secondary. The mainland is the most critical place. They are the most critical factors in whether the United States of America can become a global power. The Alaska Peninsula, Hawaii and even the small islands in the South Pacific Islands are just chicken ribs for the current America. Do you understand, Secretary of State? Mainland, them?" Secretary Thomas suddenly thought of something and looked at Stephen Douglas with his eyes wide open. "The President is talking about Canada? The Confederate States of America in the South?" Stephen Douglas said arrogantly, "What if I say I want both?" "Both?" Thomas' hands immediately trembled. He was horrified. Canada is the most important overseas territory of Britain, at least with the same status as the Indian subcontinent. Will Britain give up Canada or even give it to the Confederate States of America? It's impossible to think about it. What's more, Stephen also wants the Confederate States of America that's separated from the South. It would be strange if Britain didn't go crazy. Even more, Britain might give up the competition with the Netherlands for hegemony in the Indian Ocean and turn back to fight the United States of America. Stephen Douglas asked sarcastically, "Why, my Secretary of State, you dare not fight with us against the British?" Chapter 631 Socialist Party Ambitions. Australia, Melbourne. Socialist Party Headquarters. The Liberal Party was founded on March 1, 1848, and now has 230,000 members. The Liberal Party represents the interests of capitalist entrepreneurs in the Kingdom of the Netherlands. The current party leader is Gerrit de Vries. The first Prime Minister of the Netherlands, which began to implement the constitutional monarchy on March 25, 1848, was from the same family as the founding leader Gerrit Simapanic. The party leader is Jan van Capello, who continues to serve as the Minister of Finance of the Dutch cabinet. Marie-Philippe, born in 1810, used to be known as the King of Corruptors in Belgium, but no one can deny that he also has another title, which is the Kingmaker. He used to be the Kingmaker in Belgian politics. In 1852, he successfully used dirty deals to push his senator, Henri de Brouwer, to become the Prime Minister of Belgium. In 1862, the old trick was used again, and Jules Darnetten, a senator from Limburg and a disciple of Bill Charles, the director of the Dutch Royal Intelligence Bureau, was assisted to succeed and became the youngest Prime Minister in the history of Belgium in 1862. After Jules Darnetten won the hearts of the Dutch people in just a few years, he was successfully elected as the President of the Belgian Senate in 1865 with the support of this strong Belgian Prime Minister. In February 1869, East Flanders, West Flanders, Antwerp, Flemish Brabant, and South Limburg in northern Belgium returned to Dutch rule with 1.6 million Dutch people, and the Dutch Socialist Party was established on January 1, 1870. After returning to the Netherlands, Marie-Philippe, the former president of the Belgian Senate, became the minority whip of the Socialist Senate. At the same time, He was the third person in the party after Jules Darneton, the leader of the Socialist Party, and Joseph Beit, the party leader. Marie-Philippe always looks joking, but he is a gentleman. No one who knows his background would ever think of his dirty past. I calculated that after the constitutional monarchy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands was implemented in 1848, there were 14 prime ministers with different terms. Among them, the Liberals served for 11 terms, the Christian Party served for 2 terms, and the independent Jane Jacob Rockhuizen served for 1 term, but now he also belongs to the Liberal Party and became the governor of South Australia. That means the Liberal Party has occupied 12 of the 14 prime ministers. Facing such a strong Liberal Party, I don't believe that the Christian Party will be willing to continue to let the Liberal Party grow. You want to win over the Christian Party and then unite to form a cabinet government. Joseph Beit was born in 1825. He was an undercover agent of the Netherlands in Belgium and studied under the former Prime Minister Thorbecke. He was elected as a senator of Brussels in 1856. In 1862, he originally ran for Prime Minister of Belgium. After losing the competition with Jules Darneton in the party decisive battle, he turned to support Jules Darneton. In return, the latter supported him to run for Speaker of the Belgian House of Representatives, and he was successfully elected. This person has an upright character, like Biden in later generations, who is wise but appears foolish. Currently serving as the leader of the Socialist Party, Joseph Beit frowned and said worriedly, "At present, it seems that the Christian Party will not reject us, but if we take the initiative, we may lose the initiative." Mr. Joseph is right. The current leader of the Christian Party, Theo von Linden, is very difficult to deal with. He was once the Deputy Minister of the Navy, but was later appointed by His Majesty William IV as the Governor of New Guinea Province. At present, the Christian Party uses the East India Company base in the province to manufacture weapons, and the New South Wales province where Sydney is located is the leading economic development engine. It has successfully shaped the new face of the Christian Party, so I am worried that Theo von Linden will not give us too many concessions. The speaker was Joseph Beit's firm ally in Belgium and also Joseph Beit's campaign assistant. He was previously pushed by Joseph Beit to the majority whip of the Belgian House of Representatives, but now he has returned to the Netherlands and has become the minority whip of the Socialist Party in the House of Representatives. His status is only first place than Marie-Philippe, and ranks fourth within the Socialist Party. This person is often Joseph Beit's yes man. Marie-Philippe did smile without changing his expression in the face of the two people's questions, but he did not give a direct answer. Instead, he continued to introduce the other two parties in the Netherlands that he was very familiar with, including the Socialist Party itself, to the three people. The Christian Party was formed in 1855 by the three forces of historical Protestantism, Catholicism, Christian Historical Alliance and anti-revolutionary forces. The party's purpose is to oppose the overemphasis on the role of government and market. Its sphere of influence is mainly in rural areas, representing the interests of farmers and advocating the maintenance of European, especially Dutch traditional values and morals. It now has 170,000 members. It has defeated the Liberal Party 3 times to win the Dutch general election and formed a cabinet 3 times. The last time the Christian Party formed a cabinet was in 1856 to 1858, 20 years later. At present, the party ranks second in the Netherlands. Among the 77 senators in the Senate, the Christian Party has 20 senators and 220 members in the House of Representatives. The Christian Party has only 75 members in the House of Representatives because the population is not dense. On the contrary, the Liberal Party currently has 40 senators. The population of the Liberal Party is dense, so it has 110 seats in the House of Representatives. The party leader is Theo von Linden, and the party leader is Peter Ohm. Our Socialist Party was founded on January 1, 1870 and currently has 120,000 members, 13 senators, the remaining 4 are independent, 30 members of the House of Representatives, and 5 independent members of the House of Representatives. Our Socialist Party is now the third largest party in the Kingdom of the Netherlands. If you look at these data, I think not only we will be moved, but also the Christian Party, I guarantee it. If we can successfully form a cabinet with the Christian Party, we will advocate a balance between economic development and social justice and fairness, a reasonable distribution of power, income and knowledge wealth, and an emphasis on everyone having the right to a good job, income, welfare, education and health, etc. We will stand between the Liberal Party and the Christian Party and win over voters on both sides. At the same time, We have close relations with major trade unions, and most of the union members are members of the Socialist Party. So as long as our influence expands, sooner or later we will be in power. What we need now is our first chance to govern after the founding of the party." After Maury Phillips said this, he said to party leader Jules Donatan and party chairman Joseph Byte, "As long as we can govern once, even if it is only semi-governing, we will come to power a second, third, and countless times in the future. I believe that the Liberal Party will be suppressed by us sooner or later." "Haha, well said," Jules Donatan praised first, then he said to Joseph Byte, "Just do as Maury Phillips said, because this is a small obstacle we need to overcome to move forward. After we step on it, we will be able to walk on flat ground afterwards, just like we did in Belgium before." Chapter 632 Party Diplomacy. Currently, the Liberal Party has established a council of elders composed of former prime ministers, including Gerrit Smepanik, Johann Rudolf Thorbecke, Floris Aline van Hall, Jan Jacob Brockhuizen, Jacob van Leuven, and Scherthorn van Helmstedt. The Christian Party has also established a council of elders, but it only has 2 former prime ministers and a few senior noble representatives. Jules Donatan said, "Faced with their huge resources, what should we do as the Socialist Party? We can't compete with them in terms of qualifications and resources, because we have only been established for 8 years, and they have been established for 30 or 25 years. We can't compare with these, so we can't compare with them in their strengths. Such a competition is meaningless." Jules Donatan said this with a louder tone, "We are returnees, so we have an advantage that they have never had, that is, we have a more harmonious relationship with immigrants and indigenous peoples in various countries, so this is our innate advantage. Because of this, after we founded the party, we were able to quickly expand the party to more than 100,000 members and become the 3rd largest party. Now the Union Christian Party is bound to win, which can make those overseas immigrants who follow our position have more unity and let them see hope. For this reason, I decided that we should take the next innovative step of the Socialist Party." Joseph Byte, Maury Philip, and Hester looked at Jules Donatan with doubts. Jules Donatan faced the doubts in these eyes. "The Socialist Party must reform before it can move forward, so I decided that our Socialist Party is going to set up a new department." Set up a new department? Several people were confused again. Therefore, they were more curious. "I call it the Socialist Party's International Cooperation Department." Hester immediately asked, "What is its responsibility?" "Its responsibility is for the Socialist Party to make friends internationally and use its position in the Netherlands to attract allies, partners, and even enemies of the Netherlands to develop relations with the Socialist Party," Jules Donatan replied. Joseph Byte suddenly asked, "Will this pose a threat to the power of the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs?" As expected of someone who has been in the House of Representatives for a long time, he is very quick to notice. Jules Donatan could not help but secretly admire the other party. "Of course not. We are just communicating between political parties. For example, we have developed close relations with the Democratic Party of the United States of America. When the 2 parties were in power in their respective countries, they could effectively maintain bilateral relations. The current ruling Liberal Party in the Netherlands has close relations with the Republican Party that was previously in power in the United States. The relations between the 2 countries are also very friendly, so the relationship will naturally be good. This is using political parties to win over allies." Maury Phillips' eyes lit up when he heard this, and he couldn't help but praise, "You are worthy of being the party leader. You can think of this. The current Democratic Party of the United States of America Stephen Douglas cabinet government has just come to power, but it has been rumored in the United States that many people within the Democratic Party are unwilling to continue to see the United States of America following the Netherlands too closely, and are unwilling to be the Netherlands' followers. Therefore, many people are asking the Netherlands that Stephen's cabinet government should distance itself from the Netherlands, especially to maintain neutrality when the Netherlands and Britain compete for hegemony in the Indian Ocean. So now the Liberal Party is facing the possible rebellion of the Netherlands, its most loyal ally. If the Socialist Party and the Democratic Party can maintain good relations, then when the relationship between the Netherlands and the United States of America falls to a low point in the future, if we can successfully rescue it as a white knight, then we will be in a favorable position in the future election. Maybe the Democratic Party will even become our important foreign aid. Of course, when the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs sometimes has loopholes, party relations can make up for it. Just based on this one, I think His Majesty William IV will agree with our approach, and even the Liberal Party will not object. After all, They will also step down one day, which is a good power for all parties. Seeing that Joseph Biden and the others still have doubts, Jules Stanadang said, "In fact, I have a deeper meaning in it." Molly Phillip and others looked expectant. Just now we mentioned that it is a giant ally like the United States of America, but what if we are facing Venezuela, the Kingdom of Siam, or even a smaller country like Ecuador? When they heard this, they couldn't help but tremble. They thought of many things. Ecuador wants to ask the Netherlands for economic help. Who should it go to? We can provide the channels they need. Who should Ecuador go to sell military weapons to? We can help them, because we have many members in both the Senate and the House of Representatives. Who should Ecuador go to show its intimacy with neighboring countries? Our Socialist Party can exclude senators or representatives from the party from visiting Ecuador, and publicly publicize the support of the Socialist Party for Ecuador, so that Ecuador can feel the friendship of the Socialist Party, so that they will just hold on to this bond with us and be reluctant to give it up. As Jules Stanadang's wise eyes fell on the few people, he saw that they had revealed their shining eyes at this time, and couldn't help but smile, and at the same time sighed. Because what the people in front didn't know was that what he just said was actually the precious thing that William Ivey gave him in person when he met William Ivey not long ago. He felt the same as the three people in front of him, and felt the world collapsing. It was simply amazing that the amount of information provided by His Majesty William Ivey was so amazing that he felt like a miracle window had suddenly opened and he saw a different world. He discovered that the world could be so blue and change so much. Similarly, it turned out that political parties could be played like this. Seeing the stunned looks of these people, Jules Stanadang suddenly felt more balanced. Think about it. If our socialist parties' footprints dominate the internal world of various large and small countries, and even when there is unrest in their internal affairs, we can help the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs to intervene together, then our role will be very obvious. Sometimes we can even blatantly cultivate pro-Dutch forces in various countries, which are actually pro-socialist forces, and attract elites to immigrate to the Netherlands. These people will naturally become a steady stream of fixed votes for the Dutch Socialist Party. At that time, we will not only attract Christian Party and Liberal Party voters internally with the founding purpose of the party, but also have a fixed source of overseas immigrant votes. I think we need to form a cabinet government with the Christian Party in this election, but it is not certain who will win the next election. Chapter 633 Military Defense of Sumatra. 1878, William Ivey, who arrived at Padang in the southern part of central Sumatra after leaving Medan, received internal intelligence from the Australian continent. The Socialist Party had already started party diplomacy. In the report of Bill Charley, the director of Royal Netherlands Intelligence, the four major leaders of the Socialist Party started working on this. What surprised William the most was that the first target chosen by Stanadang was the Democratic Party of the United States of America, which surprised him. And this information was transmitted from Washington yesterday. You acted really quickly. After being stunned for a moment, William Ivey couldn't help but smile at Bill Charley. Bill Charley pondered for a moment and said, "Your Majesty, the Socialist Party is getting more and more relaxed and seems to be starting to block the Liberal Party in various ways. Will this affect the future stability of the Netherlands? I am afraid that if the three parties cannot stop fighting in the future, it will damage the national strength of the Netherlands. Stanadang is your direct disciple. What's the matter? Don't you think it will be a great sense of accomplishment if the Socialist Party succeeds?" William Ivey said jokingly. The latter's face changed drastically, and Bill Charley was about to explain. William Ivey waved his hand and smiled, but Joseph Biden is also a student of former Prime Minister Thorbecke. This Socialist Party is a positive and red party. It seemed that a joke that made Bill Charley sweat was over. Unexpectedly, William Ivey followed up with, "The Intelligence Department needs to be independent and not participate in the struggle between political parties. I don't want the Netherlands to lose any elites because of this. Understand?" William Ivey's eyes seemed to be able to see through other people's hearts, and Bill Charley nodded in response. He always smiles and looks harmless, but no one knows how many earth-shaking things this king has done behind the scenes. If only 1/10 of it is revealed, it will be enough to shock the whole of Europe and the major countries in the world, and the Dutch danger index will definitely double. Especially after 8 years, the comprehensive economic strength of the Netherlands has almost reached the level of being on par with the United Kingdom, occupying the first place in the world. This is also the result of the small white population in the Netherlands and the low-income indigenous people. If the indigenous people in the Netherlands are all white, then the Kingdom of the Netherlands will definitely far exceed the United Kingdom, at least more than 1/3. Not to mention, the various secret weapons of the Dutch military are endless. Even he, the Director of Internal Intelligence in the Netherlands, can't tell how many weapons are not on the world. Since the Dutch submarine was exposed in 1869, the Netherlands has not exposed new weapons again for many years, but it does not prevent countries from guessing the advanced level of Dutch weapons. Coincidentally, William IV also thought of this. In 1864, the weapons company under the Dutch Far East Group conducted the first military airship test in Alice Springs, in the middle of the Australian continent. It was forced to land after flying only 2 kilometers. This is because it is difficult to travel long distances with artificial pedals, and the effect is not as good as the hot air device invented by the French brothers Montgolfier in 1783. However, in 1867, Daimler and Carl Benz developed an internal combustion engine together with Otto, so the airship equipped with an internal combustion engine made its first successful flight that year. The first flight flew more than 20 kilometers, which shocked the entire Dutch military for a while. The Dutch military then deployed missiles, and finally the airship became the Netherlands to arm this newly emerged aircraft. At this point, the Netherlands finally eliminated the hot air balloons that depended on the sky, and entered the era of airships guarding space in 1868. By 1870, the Netherlands had built more than 4 airships on the Australian continent, 2 of which were deployed in the capital Melbourne, and the other 2 were deployed in the most important economic city Sydney. With a large number of orders from the government received by the Far East Group, as of last year 1877, the Netherlands currently has more than 50 airships, of which Melbourne and Sydney have deployed 5 each. 5 are also deployed in the important military Adelaide, the capital of South Australia, and the Paradise Peninsula on New Guinea. The rest are deployed in Jakarta, Java, Perth, Western Australia, Tasmania, Palembang, Sumatra, Medan, Sumatra, and Padang, Sumatra, where he is now. A small flying team consisting of 5 airships is deployed. The current dispute between Britain and the Netherlands in the Indian Ocean is caused by the Strait of Malacca. Therefore, many of the Netherlands' secret weapons have been deployed to the front line, with 15 airships alone, accounting for nearly 1/3 of the total number of Dutch airships. This time, William IV can be regarded as going to the front line to explore the crisis. So his arrival in Sumatra this time is of great significance. The Padang area is located in the eastern part of Sumatra. Opposite it are the Mentawai Islands and the Batu Islands, which are located in the open sea and form the Mentawai Strait, which protects the transportation routes of Padang and the entire eastern part of Sumatra, so there must be no loss here. At present, the Netherlands has more than 100,000 indigenous soldiers on Sumatra, deployed in different places, and the White Army is also deployed on the island with more than 50,000 soldiers, managed in a 1-to-2 manner. At present, more than 30,000 Dutch troops, a mix of whites and indigenous peoples, are deployed in Medan City, of which 3,000 are deployed in Banda Aceh in the westernmost part. These 30,000 people are used to protect the western part of Sumatra. In addition, more than 30,000 people are deployed in Pekanbaru at the northern end of the central part, because opposite is Kuala Lumpur, Malacca and Singapore, the southernmost tip of the Southeast Asian peninsula, so William IV agreed to deploy 30,000 troops to defend there across the sea. Padang is used as a supply line, and 30,000 people are deployed here to support the front line at any time as a reserve army. The remaining 40,000 were deployed in Palembang and Nambang, South Sumatra, with 20,000 deployed respectively. In addition, 10,000 were deployed in Champi and Bengkulu. In terms of the Navy, a sailing warship is currently deployed in Medan Port, with 9 other sailing warships of various levels as auxiliary to guard North Sumatra, patrol between Banda Aceh and Medan Port, and of course cruise Malacca seafood. In the south, Sibuaya, Siborga, Padang, Bengkulu, Nambang, Penang Port, etc. are all deployed with small naval fleets, among which Padang and Nambang form a medium-sized fleet, and the defense of land, sea and air exists, which is also the confidence of the Netherlands. Although Britain has been operating in the north for a long time, not to mention the Indian subcontinent in the west as a support, the Netherlands currently has the Australian continent as its hinterland, so William IV is much more relieved. Next, it is a battle of wits and courage. The Netherlands has not fought a war for 15 years since it fought with Portugal in Africa. Perhaps people have forgotten the Netherlands' past glory. Maybe this time we have to let Britain help us build some prestige. What do you think, my intelligence director? Bill Charlie said seriously, Britain should indeed be warned, but your majesty, shouldn't you return to the southern Australian continent first? The people there are confused because of your arrival at the front line. William Ivy shrugged helplessly and smiled bitterly. It seems that this is the only way, but the goal has been achieved. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 634, The Electrical Age of Telephone Broadcasting has arrived. 1878, when the power dispute between the Netherlands and Britain over the Strait of Malacca was in full swing, King William IV of the Netherlands, who had arrived there 11 days ago, left Padang Port on Sumatra Island and boarded the Navy No. 1 built by the Dutch East India Company's naval manufacturing company for King William IV in 1873 and headed straight south, apparently preparing to return to Melbourne, the capital of the Netherlands. On March 22, 1878, the Far East Electric Company under the Dutch East Far East Group announced that they had developed new technology to improve the communication system, and the Unified Postal Service was a fast communication that everyone could enjoy. As if in competition, Edison, the leader of the R&D department of the Dutch East India Company, announced the development of the telephone. As the vice president of the Royal Netherlands Academy of Sciences, Edison lived up to expectations this time and developed a telephone with a long call distance after a carbon transmitter and an induction line. On the same day, he also announced that he had manufactured a common power telephone and had ascended the throne to register a telephone company. At the press conference, he also said that the Dutch East India Company had applied for patents for both inventions worldwide, which immediately caused a sensation in the Australian continent, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and the world. The telegraph era had already shown the benefits of communication, so when the Dutch Far East Group announced the telegraph and communication improvements, everyone couldn't help but rejoice. However, the emergence of the telephone now broke everyone's cognition and shocked everyone. Coupled with the telegraph and phonograph he had developed before, this shocked the world for the 31-year-old Dutch young scientist and capitalist. After all, telephone communication is enough to compare with the phonograph he invented 2 years ago, and even the use of the telephone is enough to change the scope of more practicality and wider than the phonograph. To this day, they still remember how crazy the crowds were after Edison invented the phonograph and sold it on the market in 1877. Several inventions made Edison's products hot-selling. Because of this, Edison is also known as the inventor closest to the market, becoming the most favored and wait-and-see inventor of the Capital Consortium, and a world technology vein. While people were excited about the telephone, Edison announced in Sydney that his General Electric Company had begun to develop electric lights. If successful, thousands of households in Australia would become the first to test electric lights. At that time, the Dutch would enjoy the joy of night lights for the first time in the world. As the two most powerful consortiums in the Netherlands, the Dutch East India Company and the Dutch Far East Company have been competing with each other in military equipment and technology, and the two consortiums have backers. The headquarters of the Dutch East India Company and the Christian Party are both in Sydney, the capital of New South Wales. The annual political donations to the Christian Party are astronomical data, said to be millions of pounds, over 100 million Dutch guilders. Therefore, no matter which member of the Christian Party, they know that the Dutch East India Company is an ally of the Christian Party. Whether in the Senate or the House of Representatives, as long as the East India Company is damaged, they will oppose or intercept the draft, and they also need to help the company to obtain more favorable policies. The Liberal Party naturally supports its ally, the Dutch Far East Group, so the current headquarters of the Far East Group and the Liberal Party are also located in Adelaide, South Australia. The two parties clearly support the two major consortiums, which has long been commonplace in the Netherlands from top to bottom. It can even be said that they are more supportive of various disputes between the two parties and the two major consortiums because only in this way can various monopolies not be formed. This is actually a benefit to the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Because of this, there is a healthy competition in the economy, technology and even politics of the Netherlands. However, since the establishment of the Socialist Party on January 1, 1870, This pattern of two powers competing for hegemony has been slowly broken. Especially in the past 1 or 2 years, the Netherlands has discovered that a third force has emerged in the Netherlands, whether in politics or in the economic and technological circles, without anyone knowing. In particular, the Netherlands United Industrial Group, formerly Antwerp Food Company, which rose with the Socialist Party, was renamed the Netherlands United Industrial Group after the Antwerp province returned to the Netherlands in 1869. It has been unstoppable all the way and has become the most powerful life food super company in the Netherlands. No matter where you are, firewood, rice, oil, salt, sauce and vinegar are necessities that people need, so when the company actually started with this and succeeded, it can be said that everyone was shocked. At present, the Dutch United Industrial Group has many subsidiaries, many of which have even entered all parts of the world. Among them are the two world's most powerful beer companies, AB InBev, a famous beer giant in Europe and the United States, and Budweiser. There are also the Dutch Chocolate Company, the Dutch Transport Company, offshore, the Antwerp Diamond Company, the world's largest diamond company, the Dutch Grain and Oil Company, and the Dutch Melbourne Electric Company, which form the third largest company in the Netherlands. It can be said that together with the Socialist Party, they form the third largest force in the Netherlands. Both are headquartered in Melbourne, the capital of the Netherlands. With the East India Company and the Far East Company in the lead, the Dutch United Industrial Group, as the third largest company in the Netherlands, is naturally unwilling to lag behind. In particular, it represents the most world-renowned scientific and technological industrial technology in the Netherlands. On April 5, 1878, the Dutch United Industrial Group held an industrial innovation product launch conference in Melbourne, where the leader of the Socialist Party, tyrant, appeared because the group released a very important new product and invention, an invention that has a significant impact on the world. Even its appearance forced the Royal Netherlands Academy of Sciences to come out and issue a major statement to respond. The Dutch United Industries Group now announces that our Melbourne Electric Company in the Netherlands has invented radio communication equipment. Yes, it is the world leader. We have also equipped and tested a number of products, and this time we are going to manufacture and market one of them. We call it broadcast communication. Our idea is to broadcast it everywhere to deliver the news people need. Yes, it is radio. At present, our group has begun to contact the Melbourne government to prepare for promotion in Melbourne first. If the effect is good, it will be launched in New South Wales, the entire Kingdom of the Netherlands and customers around the world in the future. If the birth of the telephone is shocking, then the future role of radio will make people fall into all kinds of reverie. Many politicians in the world think of radio, which seems to be more useful for their rule than telephone, because it can express their heart to the people under their rule. Therefore, even Alexander II of the Russian Empire could not help but cast a hot eye on the Netherlands. Chapter 635, Napoleon III survived the butterfly effect. The Second French Empire, Paris, Palace of Versailles. In history, Napoleon III was defeated in the Battle of Sedan in 1870 and captured by Prussia. He was released after the French Revolution in 1871. Napoleon III could only take Queen Eugenie and his only son to London for refuge. Napoleon III died in 1873. Because of the butterfly effect brought by William IV, he is still safe and sound at the age of 70. If he knew that it was because of William IV, I'm afraid he would have a wonderful expression on his face. At this time, Napoleon III was discussing the many problems facing the Second French Empire with Prime Minister Charles of the Second French Empire. I have already said last time that the French Third Republic regime of Adolphe Thiers in the south is competing with us. At present, we need to befriend the British Empire. This is absolutely necessary. Otherwise, if we are not careful, those British guys will support the South instead. I think those guys in London are so timid, so when it is time to give them some sweetness, don't be stingy. Prime Minister Charles said seriously, but then he changed his tone and said, but we can't underestimate them too easily. We can even show that our relationship with the Netherlands is closer than before, so that Britain knows that we have also grasped their handles that need us, and strive for the strongest side of the greatest interests. So, Your Majesty, I think Britain needs us to be their partner in supporting them on the Indian Ocean issue. But in the same way, France also needs Britain to support us in the north on the issue of the French Empire's territory. Therefore, I suggest that if the profit is not big, or even the surrounding situation is not very tense, we should still show our domineering attitude. After all, We Gauls will not easily compromise and surrender like others, and even when it comes to core territorial interests, we will not hesitate to fight another battle. Napoleon III did not say anything, but turned his gaze to Queen Eugenie, who was dressed in formal attire but seemed unwilling to speak. Now, Queen Eugenie and Napoleon III and his wife were of the same mind, and she became Napoleon III's most trusted personal advisor. Although what Prime Minister Charles said is good, I think Britain's current attitude is really unreliable. As we all know, Britain is notoriously unwilling to see a powerful country on the European continent. The French Empire is connected to Britain across the English Channel. If the French Empire splits, I think maybe the Kingdom of Prussia, no, it should be called the German Empire now. If the German Empire is the first to be happy, then Britain is definitely the second. Other countries such as Spain and Italy are also very happy. Let me ask, will Britain really support us? Don't dream. If London was not too worried that the German Empire would become too powerful and threaten them after annexing us, I am afraid that it would have turned a blind eye and let Germany annex us. To put it nicely, it is called mutual assistance between our two countries. To put it bluntly, our second French Empire is now Britain's watchdog, just like Belgium in the past, guarding the coast east of the English Channel. Queen Eugenie looked at Prime Minister Charles, who was embarrassed and did not refute. Seeing Napoleon III's very ugly expression, she continued to be impolite. So, it's better to maintain the current status of making friends with Britain. I don't think it's necessary to offend the Kingdom of the Netherlands in order to go further, because the current focus of the Netherlands has shifted eastward. The current population of the Netherlands in the north is maintained at about 2 million. Although the population is small, the defense is very strict. It is said that many seaports in places such as Amsterdam and Rotterdam are heavily guarded. The Netherlands' world-renowned submarines currently number no less than 20. Facing these silent underwater ghosts, plus the Netherlands deploying no less than 20 warships of various types on its home soil, the two steam battleships Amsterdam and Rotterdam are still on the home soil. Even the British Home Fleet and the Channel Fleet in the English Channel dare not move. Queen Eugenie seemed to remind but actually warned, the Dutch mainland army has more than 100,000 soldiers. Faced with such a situation, our French Empire is already in the midst of a civil war. Should we offend such a powerful army next to us? What's more, the mainland is only one factor. The Far East Netherlands, which is far more powerful than the mainland, will be a nightmare for all countries. This is why Britain and the Netherlands in the Far East have been fighting for the Strait of Malacca until now, but they dare not attack the European mainland of the Netherlands directly. Queen Eugenie's words made the two grown men feel annoyed, but they had to admit that she was right. After Napoleon III pondered for a long time, he slowly comforted Prime Minister Charles. In fact, since the Netherlands has blatantly announced to everyone that it will not give up the management of the Strait of Malacca, I think Britain also understands that this is the Netherlands' attempt to take on Britain after its nearly 20 years of rise. After the Netherlands lost the 4 naval battles in the 18th century, the Netherlands had another face-to-face collision with Britain at sea after nearly 100 years. I think Britain can also feel William IV's determination. Not only me, but even William I, Bismarck and other European countries understand that the century-old fate of Britain and the Netherlands has been reincarnated again, but they are not sure whether there will be a 5th large-scale naval battle between the Netherlands and Britain. Since Napoleon III was able to become a king from a president, no one would deny his political scheming, but no one is perfect. After being captured by Prussia, he finally realized that he was a little arrogant before, unable to recognize himself and others, so he decided to change his ways and return to the shrewdness when he became the president of the Second French Republic. Brief and to the point, this is what Queen Eugenie and Prime Minister Charles thought after Napoleon III's speech. Queen Eugenie, who just spoke, is good at talking big, and she is also good at threading needles in details. She is indeed a meticulous woman. It is for this reason that Napoleon III made her the regent of France. This is Prime Minister Charles' current opinion. Napoleon III and Queen Eugenie will complement each other. Since Napoleon III returned in 1870, he has seen that the couple's political integration has become more coordinated. Since the couple said this, he, an outsider, naturally would not refute it, but out of his duty as Prime Minister, he still put forward his own opinion. At present, the South is vigorously developing its economy. The German Empire seems to be determined to check and balance us and prevent us from unifying the French Empire here. Therefore, it is vigorously supporting the South both militarily and economically. The same is true for Emmanuel II in Italy. Although Spain has not shown much, it has not prevented economic exchanges with the South. So, on the contrary, we are currently economically orphaned because of our hostility with the German Empire and the South. Prime Minister Charles smiled bitterly and said, "The reason why I propose to take a step further with the United Kingdom just now is that I think the British economic market size is sufficient, which is just complementary to the French Empire." Seeing Queen Eugenie frowning, Prime Minister Charles' heart jumped, and he hurriedly said, "But now the economic development of the Netherlands has even surpassed that of the United Kingdom. We can break through the economic blockade." "Yes, the Netherlands is good," Napoleon III said enviously at this time. The Dutch mainland originally restricted the Netherlands' rise as a great power, but no one thought that William IV would give up his mainland and migrate to the Far East, a place far away from the checks and balances of great powers. In 15 years, it has developed into a place with an economic development level that is not behind that of Britain and the Netherlands. It's amazing. There are islands everywhere. When the British Navy dominated the world before, the Netherlands still had to bow to Britain. But since the Netherlands developed submarines, Britain has less means of checks and balances on the Netherlands, while the Netherlands' surface ships are being manufactured with all their strength, and their tonnage is only slightly lower than that of Britain. At present, we can only know who is stronger after the war between the two countries. After Napoleon II finished speaking, he said to Queen Eugenie, "At present, Spain is also learning from the Netherlands to vigorously develop the Philippines in the Far East. It seems that it is interested in building Spain's second mainland. Look at us, one rises and one falls. I can see that the overall strength of our homeland has declined because of the rebellion in the south. Even the African colonies, Algeria and Tunisia near the Mediterranean, have become part of the Adolf Hitler regime. It is second only to Mali, Ivory Coast, Mauritania, Seychelles, America and the Far East and West Africa." Queen Eugenie and Prime Minister Charles exchanged strange eyes, and Prime Minister Charles suddenly said, "Your Majesty, I think we should also develop the Far East like Spain and the Netherlands." Upon hearing this, Napoleon II's eyes flashed with wildness and he raised his head to look at Prime Minister Charles. Prime Minister Charles said, "At present, we are facing the situation of being relatively weak in our own continental Europe, just like the Netherlands. The French Empire has a population of 35 million, 14 million in the south, and 21 million in the north. At present, the Far East, North and South Vietnam, 1/3 of Cambodia, and the southern part of Laos, which occupies half of the territory we occupy. According to our surveyor's estimates, the current area is about the same as our 550,000 square kilometers. In fact, we are much larger than the Philippines occupied by Spain, which is less than 300,000 square kilometers. Therefore, I think this muddy water in the Far East is an opportunity for the rise of our second French Empire again." He stared at Napoleon III with shining eyes, and every word was excited, saying, "Your Majesties, at present, our white population is the same as that of the Dutch whites. There are only about 10 million indigenous people in the three places. If we can implement nationalization there, then as long as the French Empire can immigrate half of them, there will be your second place to firmly maintain the royal fortress in the future, and the second French Empire will last forever." Upon hearing this, Napoleon II's closed eyes immediately opened like opened windows. Trying hard to suppress his rushing blood, he ordered, "Just as you say. It's time for the second French Empire to truly step out of Europe." Queen Eugenie and Prime Minister Charles glanced at each other quickly, and then both showed excitement at the right time. Chapter 636 Nicobar Islands and Andaman Islands Dispute. 1878, the statement issued in Paris shocked the world, including Britain, the German Empire, Italy, Spain, etc. The cabinet government of the Second French Empire, whose capital is Paris, announced that the French Empire did not want the British and Dutch to have a conflict in the Far East. As friendly neighbors of the two countries, the Second French Empire was willing to promote the two countries to negotiate to resolve the dispute. If this is the case, everyone will not be shocked. The reason they are shocked is that the government of the Second French Empire also announced that it will prepare to immigrate 2 million French people to the North and South Vietnamese territories in the Far East in the next 5 years to build the real overseas territory of the Second French Empire. The government also announced that it will timely bid for transport fleets, including those of countries around the world, to help the large-scale migration of the Second French Empire. The news released by the government of the Second French Empire immediately caused a world of amazement. The Third French Republic, the German Empire and the United Kingdom in the south were caught off guard. However, William IV, who was on his way back to Melbourne, smiled knowingly after receiving the news. Isabella II really has a way. There are many European powers. Now under the leadership of the Netherlands, there will be many second nests of European countries in the Far East in the future. What they didn't expect was that this was actually a trap set by me. After the French Empire and Spain settle here, they can only raise sheep, and they are sheep raised by France and Spain with their own grass, but the people who fleeced the sheep are me and the Netherlands. On April 10, 1878, the government of the Kingdom of the Netherlands publicly welcomed the migration of the Second French Empire. The Netherlands thinks this is a good approach, because it means that the Netherlands and France are not only good neighbors in Europe, but will also be neighbors in the Far East in the future. With the Netherlands' statement, the Spanish government in Madrid also expressed its support for the migration of the Second French Empire, and Isabella II even said that it would send a Spanish transport fleet to bid for France's transportation work. In the case that Spain has transported 1.8 million Spaniards to the Philippines in the past 10 years, no one would think that Spain's transportation capacity cannot keep up with this bid, so no one would object to Spain's approach. After all, the transportation companies of the Netherlands and the Second French Empire will also participate in this bidding. British Empire, London, what do you think of the actions of the Netherlands and Spain? What problems will our country face? Queen Victoria has never been truly relieved since she started competing with the Netherlands for the sovereignty of the Strait of Malacca in the Far East in February 1878. We have finally reduced the threat by dividing the French Empire into North and South, but the Netherlands has launched a provocation against our colonies. The dispute over the Nicobar Islands and the Andaman Islands has been under our rule for more than 90 years. Now the Netherlands tells us that the Nicobar Islands and the Andaman Islands belong to the seabed of Sumatra, so these two archipelagos should be assigned to Sumatra. Oh my God, is the Netherlands crazy about territory? Crown Prince Edward, who was born in 1842, roared angrily, I think this time we in the British Empire should teach the Netherlands a lesson. We must let them know what it means to be ignorant of the immensity of the world and what is the bottom line of the British Empire that cannot be touched. Okay, this is not your room. Queen Victoria stopped Crown Prince Edward from venting, and said to Claxton coldly, Prime Minister, will the actions of France and the Netherlands be connected this time? What she was most worried about was whether France's migration this time would be a conspiracy by the Netherlands. After all, countries have suffered a lot in this regard, so they have to be on guard against this. If Napoleon III is colluding with the Netherlands, I don't really believe it, but it's possible for his subordinates. Clayton's words made Queen Victoria stunned, and then her eyes lit up. Queen Eugenie is from Spain, and her mother was Queen Isabella's wet nurse when she was a child. Could it be that the Second French Empire and Spain are intending to cooperate in the Far East? Although I don't know the truth, it should not be much different. Clayton became the British Prime Minister for the third time, and he became more and more sophisticated. He said to Crown Prince Edward, Your Highness, the current practice of the Second French Empire migrating to the Far East is puzzling. I think if the Crown Prince can visit Berlin on behalf of Her Majesty the Queen, he can test it out. Crown Prince Edward's eyes lit up when he heard this. The Prime Minister wants to use the German Empire to test Paris and prevent Napoleon III from taking sides in the Anglo-Dutch Far East dispute. Yes, although the Netherlands' Nordic allies Sweden and Denmark have close relations with the Netherlands, they are too small and can provide limited help. Moreover, the relationship between the Netherlands and the two countries is not as close as before. But France must be guarded against. This is a lion that has just been hurt by the German Empire. It may bite people madly at any time to replenish its energy, so it must be guarded against. Claxton's statement was recognized by Queen Victoria. That's right. At present, our Indian fleet and half of the South African fleet have been assembled in the North Indian Ocean and deployed in the 6 major military ports of Colombo, Chennai, Mumbai, Dhaka, Rangoon and Maldives. Queen Victoria seemed to be looking eastward at the Kingdom of the Netherlands in the Far East, and said coldly, We have already deployed a large naval network there. As long as the Netherlands dares to move, this time, as the Crown Prince said just now, we will never let them off easily. Crown Prince Edward immediately smiled. There has never been a moment like this. The Queen in front of him looks more like his mother. Claxton said, Your Majesty is right. It's time to weaken the Netherlands. On April 13, 1878, Britain announced that it would send Prince Edward to visit Berlin, Germany. He would meet with the Crown Prince of the German Empire to deepen the friendship between the two royal families. At the same time, Prince Edward, on behalf of Queen Victoria, conveyed the Queen's hope to cooperate with the German Empire in the northern Indian Ocean. On April 15, 1878, the two crown princes announced in Berlin that Britain and Germany would jointly conduct military exercises in the Arabian Sea of the Indian Ocean to deepen the coordination of maritime security between the two countries. On April 20, 1878, King William IV of the Netherlands finally returned to Melbourne on the same day. He held a Privy Council meeting. After the meeting, the Kingdom of the Netherlands announced that it would hold a trans-Indian Ocean military exercise, but the location was chosen in the waters between Western Australia and Madagascar in the southern Indian Ocean. Chapter 637 The German Empire must intervene. German Empire, Berlin Palace. Britain, the Netherlands, Spain and now the Second French Empire are all expanding their presence in the Far East. Your Majesty, should we also open up the situation there? But how do you think we should start now? Don't forget that the four parties have huge interests and locational advantages in the Far East. But Your Majesty, don't forget that we also have a lot of interests there, such as our economic interests with the Kingdom of Siam and the Gulf of Siam, Gulf of Thailand, and with the Far Eastern powers, Japan, Ben, etc. There, our current interests can almost compete with those of Britain, the Netherlands, France, Spain and other countries. Haha, but can our navy there compare with theirs? William I smiled. He was not timid, but just a little worried. The rare calm in the surrounding situation during this period made the national strength of the German Empire even stronger. After annexing various countries and defeating the Second French Empire, its reputation was even more prosperous. It can be said that the only single country in Europe that can threaten the German Empire at present is the Tsarist Russian Empire in the east, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire is just a defeated general who is still breathing. But for some reason, there was always a voice in his mind calling him not to be too radical. But now, in the situation of the struggle for influence in the Southeast Asian Peninsula in the Indian Ocean between Britain and the Netherlands, it was difficult for him not to be radical. After all, in his eyes, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which was weaker than the Empire, had been expanding rapidly in terms of economic development and overseas territory because of its more radical approach. And looking at the German Empire, although the urgency has been growing rapidly in recent years, and the military construction has been getting stronger day by day, it seems that in addition to defeating France and gaining French Guiana in South America 8 years ago, it has only added a few poor colonies in Africa. There is really no overseas territory to show for it. Even the colony of Guyana in South America has to face protests from the imperialists in various South American countries every day, demanding that the German Empire leave South America and let Guyana be autonomous. It's really ridiculous. Why didn't the French Empire ask them to leave when they were in power? These guys must be afraid of the North German Empire's actions of defeating other countries in Europe. William I was very proud of this, and the corner of his mouth pursed up. The current dispute between Britain and the Netherlands has made the situation very unstable. If he was not afraid of causing common hostility between the two countries, he would not mind using violence to plunder in the Far East. Well, he was referring to the weakest country in the Far East, the Kingdom of Siam. And Prime Minister Bismarck in front of him seemed unwilling to accept it, and continued to persuade, even if it is as Your Majesty said, we may not be as good as them, but Your Majesty, don't forget that a country like the Netherlands still has such a large piece of land in the Dutch East Indies, not to mention that our empire is one of the most powerful countries in the world. And we don't have to really participate directly, we just need to be able to obtain the final distribution of benefits. Don't you say that? William I's eyes lit up, looking at Bismarck waiting for him to continue. Bismarck saw the 81-year-old William I who suddenly became energetic again. He shouted in his heart, Your Majesty, you can't help it anymore. But he didn't stop talking. Now that Britain has occupied Burma on the Indochina Peninsula and divided it into British India and British Malaya colonies, and France occupies North and South Vietnam and Eastern Cambodia and Northern Laos, and the Netherlands and Spain occasionally get involved in the south to stir up the situation, this besieged Kingdom of Siam, Your Majesty, please look at the map. This is Burma, this is Malaya, these are all British territories. And this is Sumatra in the Dutch East Indies. And further west are the Andaman Islands and Nicobar Islands that Britain and the Netherlands are now fighting for. Both countries want to control the entrance and exit of the Strait of Malacca into the Indian Ocean. After all, the Singapore Islands controlled by Britain in the east and the Lingga Islands controlled by the Netherlands in the east of Sumatra control the entrance and exit on the other side. So the Andaman Islands and Nicobar Islands on one side of the Indian Ocean have become the fuse of the dispute between the two countries. Bismarck, who was 63 years old and in the prime of his political career, might have been considerate of the 81-year-old William I, so he stood up and continued to point at the map on the wall and said, "Further west is British India, south of the Strait of Malacca is the Dutch East Indies, then east is the Philippines, which is the Spanish one, and then south is the Australian continent and the South Pacific Islands in the Dutch sphere of influence. To the north is the Kingdom of Siam and the North and South Vietnam controlled by France in the east, and then the ancient great country of the Far East." So looking at this map of the Far East as a whole, the Kingdom of Siam has already attracted everyone's attention. Look at the area and the position of the battle line it belongs to. As long as we hold the Kingdom of Siam firmly in our hands, any big move in Indochina will not be hidden from us. Of course, having said so much, what I actually want to say is that since the 5 countries including Britain, France, and the Netherlands are the future and present enemies of the German Empire from any angle, then we might as well activate the buffer zone between them and let them worry about it themselves. Especially if the Netherlands, the current overlord of the Far East, joins in, it will be even better. At that time, it will be the easiest for us to see a 4-nation melee involving Britain, France, Spain and the Netherlands. As long as a fight really breaks out, no matter who wins in the end, we will be one of the big winners. Moreover, the chaos in the Far East will be the best time for us to seize territory. But Prime Minister, have you ever thought about whether the Netherlands will fight with Britain and the others? Don't forget, Britain and France, in particular, are currently forming an alliance in mainland Europe to deal with us and the French Third Republic in the south. They know that their biggest enemy in Europe is us. Will they be willing to let us take advantage of them? Sorry, I'm just curious about how high the probability is. I mean to offend you, and your majesty, it's really rude to come in without asking for permission. It's good to know. Don't do it again next time. Otherwise, I won't let you off so easily this time. Even so, Bismarck still understood that this was just William I's statement to the Minister of War and Political Affairs, Ron, who was raised high and then gently put down. Bismarck was not displeased by Ron's sudden arrival and questioning. In his opinion, this was normal, because in his impression, the German Empire's Minister of War and Political Affairs in front of him had always been known for this kind of character. He was honest, frank, and liked to make overt schemes instead of just covert schemes. Working with such a person was the most comfortable and reassuring. As for another heavyweight figure in the empire, Chief of the General Staff Moltke, he also had the same view. Since your majesty has said so, isn't it difficult for me to ask you this? Bismarck glared at Ron unhappily. Haha, well, you two don't have to entangle on this issue anymore. Let's talk about the situation in the Far East. William I interrupted the two people's greetings, which were not enthusiastic but more of a brotherly love. Before Bismarck grew up, the middleman between William I and Bismarck was actually the current Minister of Military and Political Affairs, Ron. The latter had always been his best partner when he was a prince. It was he who introduced Bismarck to him and created the current German Iron Triangle consisting of him, Bismarck and Moltke, which led to the current German Empire. It can be said that Ron made a great contribution to Germany's achievements today. Therefore, Ron was the person William I trusted the most. Ron chuckled twice, but the reason why his beard was too long was strange. However, the beards of the 3 people were similar. Your Majesty, although I oppose the Prime Minister's opinion just now, I agree that we should intervene in the affairs of the Central and Eastern Peninsula, but it is an indirect action. Since the Netherlands and Britain are arguing there, and the Netherlands obviously wants to make a big fuss, then we might as well give them a hand and let them do it freely. What do you think, Prime Minister? You mean? Bismarck asked. And William I also looked at him, obviously not understanding what Ron was referring to. Since all countries want to run to the Southeast Asian Peninsula, the Kingdom of Siam is obviously an obstacle that cannot be avoided. At present, King Chulalongkorn has consolidated his position, has close relations with the Netherlands, is unfamiliar with Britain, and is an opponent of the French Empire. He has no relatives or friends with Spain. In this case, why don't we take advantage of the fact that the Kingdom of Siam needs to make friends with us, increase our friendship with the Kingdom of Siam, Make false gestures to win over the other party, and cultivate strength? We only need to use the support of the Kingdom of Siam to stir up trouble and help them at a critical moment, that is, when the Anglo-Dutch dispute deteriorates or even turns into war, so that it will be more difficult for the Netherlands and Britain to get out, and even the war will be transferred to the Indochina Peninsula, preferably to Myanmar, the Malay Peninsula, the Bay of Bengal and other places supported by Britain. Then in the end it will be a good opportunity for us, a good opportunity to weaken them. Of course, for this, Ron needs to try his best to stick their plans and conditions together. For example, France has infiltrated the east of the Mekong River from North and South Vietnam, and Britain has also infiltrated the Malay Peninsula of the Kingdom of Siam along the Indian Ocean, trying to plunder the country's territory on the Malay Peninsula. In this case, how should the Netherlands deal with itself on the Southeast Asian Peninsula? This makes people doubt the Netherlands' ambitions. No one would think that the Netherlands is just doing good things without making profits for itself, so I think everyone knows what the Netherlands is planning, but they just don't know it yet. Chapter 638. You deserve it. No wonder Britain is suppressing you, the Netherlands. The current tense relationship between Britain and the Netherlands and their evenly matched power in the Far East, as well as Britain's situation, have made the world look at Britain with ridicule. Because in 1826, George Canning, then British Foreign Secretary, together with then U.S. President James Monroe, prevented Europe from interfering in American affairs. He later boasted in the British House of Commons, "I have given birth to the New World and restored the balance of the old continent." In fact, he destroyed the foundation of the international conference system of the great powers. In his comments shortly before his death, he proudly said, "The situation has returned to a safe state. Every country takes care of itself. God will bless each of us." Looking at Britain's current situation, everyone outside of Britain can't help but remember Canning's words. Bismarck agreed, the Netherlands is currently looking to challenge Britain. From jointly ruling the Strait of Malacca to now further ruling it on its own, this is not only a challenge to Britain's power there, but also a challenge to Britain's maritime status. Your Majesty and the Prime Minister know that Britain controls important gateways in and out of the oceans around the world, the Strait of Gibraltar, the Suez Canal, Cape Town in South Africa where the Atlantic Ocean enters the Indian Ocean, the Strait of Magellan and the Drake Passage where the Atlantic Ocean enters the Indian Ocean, the English Channel in Europe, and the busy Strait of Malacca where the Dutch and British jointly manage the Western Pacific Ocean and enter the Indian Ocean. Finally, Bismarck said solemnly, the Netherlands is now challenging Britain's position in the Strait of Malacca. In fact, it is removing one of the 8 straits that Britain uses to maintain its world maritime hegemony. This is why Britain can no longer bear to deploy troops in the Indian Ocean. So what we can do now is to start with the Kingdom of Siam. The Prime Minister is right. In recent years, the Netherlands' science and technology industry has developed rapidly, its economic strength has leapt rapidly, and its military has become more secretive. This is why Britain is still very cautious and dare not take action against the Netherlands until now. Bismarck, so not long ago, Your Majesty and I agreed to the British request for a show, in order to let Britain itself pull us in. There is an old saying in the Far East that it is easy to invite gods but difficult to send them away. London invited us to participate, so it will not be easy for us to withdraw. William I and several others couldn't help but smile knowingly. At present in Europe, it can be said that the German Empire and the Netherlands are the countries with the most consistent and stable policies, because William I and William IV of the Netherlands both came to power in 1861. The former was at the beginning of the year, and William IV was at the end of the year. Despite this, the policies of the Netherlands and Prussia in the past 18 years have been very consistent. Although the reason why Britain's position is stable is because Queen Victoria has been in power for 40 years since 1839. However, the British Whig Party and the Tory Party are competing with each other, and Queen Victoria can only unite one side to suppress the other. Unlike the Netherlands, William IV is currently the most powerful king in Europe. Although William I of Germany did not have such power, his position and power were unshakable under the blessing of powerful military and political figures such as Bismarck and Moltke. Moreover, the Iron Triangle of the Three has not changed for 18 years since 1861, so it is incomparable to other countries such as Britain and Sweden. William I was shrewd and far-sighted. He knew that in the future, the world would probably be forged by Britain, Germany, Russia, the Netherlands, Austria, France and Spain with the current trend. I just don't know if he will see the finality. After all, he is now 81 years old. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look at Bismarck, who was only 63 years old and was at the highest age in the political arena. If he died, would his son, Crown Prince Frederick, be able to suppress the other party? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but think of his grandson, Crown Prince William. Perhaps in the end, he needed to do some secret work for this grandson and Crown Prince Frederick. A small meeting of the German Emperor, Prime Minister, and military and political minister ended. The tone they set has caused a great deal of ripples in the future of the world. Every day, different news attracts people's attention. While the Anglo-Dutch dispute is being discussed, people still need to continue their lives. The saddest thing in the world is that a child wants to support his parents, but they are no longer around. The saddest thing for a man is that his girlfriend is poached and he finds out that the person who poached her is actually his brother. As for girls, the saddest thing should be watching her boyfriend pick up her bestie step by step and then scold her severely, and then the two of them send her an invitation to attend their wedding with a victorious attitude. Everything in the world has its own laws. Flowers bloom and fall, and life is impermanent. Time can mess up everything in order, and it can also make everything beautiful become broken. The sun rises and sets, and it has been more than 2,000 days since then. The Netherlands is still the Netherlands, but it is no longer the European country it was 8 years ago, because the capital of the Netherlands is now Melbourne, the Far East Australian continent. In general, more than half of the territory of the Netherlands is located in the Far East. The Far East is currently ruled by the Netherlands, at least between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. The sun rises and sets closest to the Netherlands, because the Netherlands owns the South Pacific Islands and the Alaska Peninsula, which are located on the east and west sides of the international date line. Here, the Dutch can enjoy the brightness brought by the morning light and the afterglow of the sunset every day. On a new day, in this vibrant land of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, people began a new day of work. But before that, many people selectively read newspapers as their habit. Amsterdam Post, Rotterdam Daily, Echo, Die Nederland, Daily Report, Handelsblad, New Rotterdam Newspaper, Australian Times, Sydney Daily, Melbourne Post, etc. These are all necessary newspapers on the newspaper racks of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which can summarize all aspects of the Netherlands and the world. When everyone picked up these newspapers on April 6, 1878, they all saw the front page, because they all found that all the newspapers today had a big bold headline on the front page: the top university in the Kingdom of the Netherlands has finally turned around. Looking back 20 years ago, when the first international university ranking was conducted, Dutch universities were in the middle and lower positions. Now, 20 years later, they have become a country that can compete with the UK among the world's top universities. It has to be said that Dutch education has really risen too fast. No wonder the UK is suppressing the Netherlands now. Chapter 639, International University Rankings in 1878. 1878, the European Times, which has been publishing the World University Rankings for more than 17 years, released its 18th new list today. With the appearance of this list, the British Empire was immediately shocked. Why? Because on the list, British universities, which dominate the entire list, successfully challenged the British dominance in the top 10 of the European Times World University Rankings this year. The 1878 list is prominently listed. The top 1 and 10 are 1. Cambridge University, UK, founded in 1209, the same below. 2. Sydney University, Netherlands, 1850. 3. Melbourne University, Netherlands, 1853. 4. Oxford University, UK, 1096. 5. Amsterdam University, Netherlands, 1857. 6. Humboldt University of Berlin, Germany, 1810. 7. University of Paris, Second French Empire, 1150. 8. University of Vienna, Austria-Hungary, 1365. 9. University of London, UK, 1836. 10. St. Petersburg University, Tsarist Russia, 1724. The top 10 are the British Empire and the Netherlands, each occupying 3 seats. The UK ranks 1, 4, 9, the Netherlands 2, 3, 5, the Netherlands occupies 3 of the top 5, and the University of London is 9th. It can be said that although the Netherlands is still ranked first by the UK in the top 10, the Netherlands has stronger stamina. the German Empire, the Second French Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Tsarist Russian Empire occupy 6, 7, 8, 1, 0 respectively. As expected of a great power, even its university education is world-class. Top 11-20. 11 University of The Hague, Netherlands, 1858. 12 University of Munich, Germany, 1472. 13 University of Austria, Austria-Hungary, 1302. 14 University of Madrid, Spain, 1499. 15 University of Lyon, Third French Republic, 1456. 16 University of Rome, Italy, 1303. 17 Australian National University, Netherlands, 1864. 18 Moscow State University, Tsarist Russia, 1755. 19 University of Bonn, Germany, 1786. 20 King's College, Columbia University, USA, 1754. Semicolon, top 21-30. 21 Harvard University, USA, 1636. 22 University of Edinburgh, UK, 1583. 23 University of Copenhagen, Denmark, 1479. 24 Uppsala University, Sweden, 1477. 25 University of Groningen, Netherlands, 1614. 26 University of St Andrews, UK, 1441. 27 Yale University, USA, 1701. 28 University of Lisbon, Portugal, 1288. 29 University of Brussels, Belgium, 1834. 30 University of Queensland, Netherlands, 1864. Top 31-40. 31 University of Manchester, UK, 1824. 32 University of Lyon, Netherlands, 1575. 33 Brown University, USA, 1764. 34 University of Bologna, Italy, 1088. 35 University of Adelaide, Netherlands, 1864. 36 University of Salamanca, Spain, 1218. 37 University of Birmingham, UK, 1826. 38 University of Utrecht, Netherlands, 1636. 39 University of Barcelona, Spain, 1450. 40 University of Freiburg, Germany, 1457. Top 41-50. 41 Heidelberg University, Germany, 1386. 42 University of Jakarta, Netherlands, 1858. 43 University of Göttingen, Germany, 1734. 44 University of Western Australia, Netherlands, 1864. 45 Madonna University, Spain, 1743. 46 University of Glasgow, UK, 1451. 47 University of New South Wales, Netherlands, 1864. 48 University of Grenoble I, France, 1339. 49 University of Mainz, Germany, 1477. 50 University of Granada, Spain, 1531. I counted and found that in the New World University rankings, the Netherlands occupies 14 places, the United Kingdom occupies 8 places, the German Empire 7 places, Spain 5 places, the United States 4 places, France, including North and South, 3 places, Tsarist Russia 2 places, the Austro-Hungarian Empire 2 places, Italy 2 places, Denmark, Sweden, Portugal 1 place each. The Netherlands occupies nearly a quarter. In recent years, the Netherlands has vigorously developed domestic universities, and the academic atmosphere is very active, which can attract top international talents. Look at the immigrants from various European countries to the Netherlands in recent years, especially those in the Far East. According to statistics from the Financial Times of the United Kingdom, the number of European immigrants to the Far East Australian continent alone in the past 8 years has exceeded 2 million, of which Sweden and Denmark have contributed 1.2 million people to the Netherlands, and we are said to have more than 300,000 people crossing the Pacific Ocean to reach the Far East Australian continent. The elites of various countries' societies plus the talents of Dutch immigrants to Australia, so in a short period of time, the 7 universities with a relatively short history on the Australian continent have formed the Australian 7 University Alliance, which has become the world's top university alliance. It is currently comparable to the Russell University Alliance in the UK, the Dutch 4 University Alliance, Utrecht University, Leiden University, University of Groningen, University of Amsterdam, the German Empire U15 University Alliance, the Spanish University Forum Alliance, and the Ivy League in the United States. Therefore, I suggest that we should also activate the academic atmosphere of universities in the United States, so as to reduce our lack of strategic talents. The reason why Britain developed so fast in the past was because the British Isles retained talents. This is not just their warships. Their universities have vigorously cultivated talents and enriched the government and social enterprises. The capacity should not be underestimated. However, because of the civil war between the North and the South from 1862 to 1866, we lack the systematic and stable academic atmosphere like Prussia and the Netherlands in this regard, which caused the loss of talent fleeing the United States and made the Netherlands the object of the greatest benefit. Also, there are problems with our education investment system. Look at how much the United Kingdom and the Netherlands have invested. The leading universities such as Cambridge University, Sydney University, and Melbourne University have invested a lot of education funds in order to cultivate their own elite talents. On the other hand, in our country, the more famous King's University of Columbia is just at 20th place, Harvard University is at 21st, and Yale University is at 27th, which is in the middle of the top 50. In fact, our top 3 universities are only in the middle stage among Dutch universities, at 6th, 7th, and 9th. So as the President of the United States of America, I have a very tense sense of urgency, so I will propose a bill to ask the U.S. Congress to pass an emergency plan and increase university education through $10 million in education funds to the Ministry of Education, so that the competitiveness of universities in the United States of America can continue to move forward internationally. In the end, I think our Columbia University and Harvard University should be top universities, instead of the current middle position on April 27, 1878, with the release of the latest 1878 500 World University Rankings. Universities around the world have received unprecedented attention in the world. Without comparison, there is no harm. The Netherlands occupies nearly a quarter of the list, making Dutch university education the focus of global attention and the object of learning for various countries. Just like the President of the United States of America Stephen Douglas, many people urged Congress to pass funds to support education. It must be said that after the Netherlands promoted the universal primary education in 1862, which surprised European and American countries and made them follow suit, it has once again become a model for education circles around the world. Chapter 640 Royal Netherlands Naval Academy. 1878. Kingdom of the Netherlands, Adelaide, capital of South Australia, Netherlands Royal Naval Academy. Graduation ceremony of the class of 1874, more than 1,500 students graduated. In addition to the school's faculty and school leaders, King William IV, Chief of Staff Mark Rudd, Navy Minister Jan Peter, Chief of Naval Staff Joseph Carls, and Minister of Armaments Louis Bell attended today. Currently on the podium in the Academy, William IV is interacting with the graduating students. In the history of the British Empire, the white sails that spread out on the edge of the sea and sky once symbolized the dominance of this great country over the ocean. The rise of the British Royal Navy was in the era of white sails. In the 4 Anglo-Dutch naval battles, the Anglo-Spanish naval battles, and the Battle of Trafalgar, which were related to the fate of the British Empire, the Royal Navy repeatedly consulted Britain, which determined the British Empire's intervention in Europe. It also began with the Royal Navy's attack from the sea. Therefore, the strong ships and powerful guns at that time referred to the British Empire's sailing battleships at that time. As the first country to launch the Industrial Revolution, with the emergence of modern industry represented by steam power, the national strength of the British Empire has been rapidly improved. The new technologies brought by the Industrial Revolution were soon used in the field of shipbuilding. On August 17, 1807, the first powered ship developed by American Robert Fulton successfully completed a trial run on the Hudson River, marking the transition of human navigation from the sail era to the steam era. Although ships began to have their own power, New technologies and processes did not immediately change the appearance of warships until the launch of the Glory ironclad ship of the Second French Empire in 1859. The appearance of the Glory awakened the British, who were raising their sails and preparing to set sail. If they wanted to maintain their maritime hegemony, they must not let France lead the new era of steam ironclad ships. So, we saw the birth of the Warrior as a response to Britain's opponents. This year marks the 7th year that William IV has come here to attend the graduates of the Naval Academy. In addition, before the Academy moved to the Far East, it was William IV's custom to come to the Academy to give a graduation speech, just like at the Diplomatic Academy. Excuse me, students, has anyone heard of the British Warrior? Well, then this student will help answer the question. In 1860, the Warrior designed by British ship designer Isaac Watts was launched. The Warrior was 127 meters long, 17.8 meters wide, had a draft of 7.9 meters and a displacement of 9,210 tons. The Warrior was equipped with a total of 4 8-inch, 28 7-inch muzzle-loading rifled guns and 4 20-pound breech-loading guns. Like other British sailing warships before it, these guns were divided into 2 groups and fixed behind the side gun ports under the deck. All guns could only fire in a fixed direction. 1 knot equals 1 nautical mile hour equals 1.852 kilometers hour. The armor of the Warrior was installed in the central position where the side guns were concentrated. The armor was 114 millimeters thick. There are 10 hexagonal boilers installed in the cabin below the waterline of the ship. It adopts single-axis propulsion and has a speed of 14.5 knots. 1 knot equals 1 nautical mile. 1 hour equals 1.852 kilometers 1 hours. While installing steam engines and propellers, the Warrior retains 3 huge masts that can hang sails. When using steam power and sails, its maximum speed reaches 17.5 knots. As the first steam-powered ironclad ship equipped by the British Empire Royal Navy, although the Warrior still retains the old-fashioned cannons and installation methods and sails, it has maintained many firsts and opened the era of ironclad ships in the British Royal Navy. Pa. William IV's eyes showed joy, and he took the lead in applauding the graduate for a long time. The Chief of Staff Mark Rudd, the Minister of the Navy Jan Peter, the Chief of the Navy Staff Joseph Carls, and the Minister of Armaments Louis Bell sitting on both sides also showed ecstasy, and it seemed that they were happy to see the Navy's talents. This is no wonder. Over the years, the Netherlands has vigorously developed the Army and Air Force, airship force. As the number of submarines and steam-powered battleships has increased to more than 40, the Navy has begun to slow down its construction speed, but the Navy is still a bit tight, especially naval talents. At present, the Royal Naval Academy of the Netherlands provides 1,500 naval talents each year, plus various talents provided by other colleges, which is about 1,500 people in total. William IV also required to increase the proportion of naval talents in the Navy, especially the level of education. Because of this, 6 years ago, the Netherlands began to build naval academy branches on a large scale in various places. This year, more than 10 branches of the Royal Netherlands Navy have entered the enrollment state. Legislation on the Naval Academy specifications was formulated and passed in Congress. Since 1873, more than 10 schools and the Royal Naval Academy, including surface ships, submarines, coastal defense troops, and communications, have been established, forming a relatively complete naval academy system. Naval command schools are divided into 3 levels: junior, middle and senior. Junior command schools recruit high school graduates and excellent soldiers with good political, cultural and physical qualities, and train commanders and commanders of various departments such as navigation, guns, mines, communications, and electromechanical. The school system is 4 years. The ultimate command school mainly recruits graduates of junior command schools and outstanding officers who have served on ships for a certain period of time to train ship captains. The school system is 2 years. The Royal Naval Academy mainly recruits regiments, divisions, and a small number of military officers to train commanders above ship formations. The school system is also 1 to 2 years. In addition, William IV referred to the model of later generations and required the Royal Netherlands Naval Academy to be divided into 5 levels of training, including secondary colleges, undergraduates, postgraduates, and doctoral students, mainly to train specialized talents in engineering technology, use and maintenance and repair. The school system is 2 to 4 years. In addition, A postgraduate class is specially set up to recruit graduates from local or military universities, mainly to train senior professionals in teaching, research, tactical and technical demonstration, etc., with a duration of 2 to 3 years. The Naval Academy also offers training courses to recruit in-service officers to study specific subjects, with a duration of 5 months. Like the Naval Academy, each academy has established naval leadership departments and academic research departments such as training, politics, and academy affairs. In order to train qualified officers, all the above academies have formulated strict teaching plans and assessment systems, adopted more advanced teaching methods, and attached importance to the training of all naval cadets in their life at sea and the development of their combat style. Therefore, every year in the 12 months, the cadets will be organized or arranged to spend at least half a month at sea in each of the 4 quarters in order to develop a combat style and become familiar with the maritime environment. Since 1873, the Dutch Navy has provided a large number of top military commanders and professionals with both moral integrity and ability, making important contributions to the construction of the Dutch Navy. William IV looked at the 1,500 graduating students in front of him, and his heart was suddenly filled with pride. With 15,000 Dutch naval graduates this year, the Netherlands will not have to worry about facing the strong ships and powerful guns of the British Empire, the maritime hegemon. In this atmosphere, the graduation ceremony ended perfectly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 641, List of British and Dutch Battleships. After attending the graduation ceremony of the Royal Netherlands Naval Academy, William IV held talks on maritime military affairs with Chief of General Staff Mark Rudd, Navy Minister Jan Peter, Chief of Naval Staff Joseph Carls, and Minister of Armaments Louis Bell at the Royal Palace in Adelaide. Navy Minister Jan Peter, in the 18 years since the Warrior in 1860, British designers have continuously incorporated new ideas into the design of ironclad ships, and together with France and the Netherlands, they have opened up a colorful era of ironclad ships. In 1870, the German Empire successfully built its own steam battleship in its own shipyard. In 1871, Spain built its own steam battleship with the technical support we sold. In 1872, the United States of America also built its own steam battleship 2 years after purchasing 3 steam battleships built by us. In the same year, the Russian Empire also got the first battleship purchased from us, and when it picked up the second ship in 1874, it also built its own steam battleship in the port of St. Petersburg. By 1876, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Italy, and the Ottoman Empire had completed the stage of building their own steam battleships. In addition to the steam ironclad ship Warrior, Britain also had 2 classes of 6 steam ironclad battleships in 1862, including the 6,150-ton steam ironclad ship Defence and the 7,000-ton Hector. In addition, in 1865, it also had the steam ironclad battleships Royal Oak and Achilles. The latter steam ironclad battleship Achilles was the first British warship to be fully armored. It was obviously based on our technology in 1863. In 1865, Britain had 8 steam battleships. William IV sighed and asked Louis Bell, the Minister of Armaments next to him, yes, that was the time when the 5 major fleets of the British Empire, including the Channel Fleet in the English Channel, the First Fleet deployed in the North Sea, the Atlantic Fleet deployed in South Africa, the Canadian Fleet deployed in Canada, and the Indian Fleet deployed in India, were formed. How many steam ironclad ships does Britain have now? Seeing William IV asking the question, Louis Bell put down the teacup in his hand and replied, Warrior, Black Prince, Defence, Agincourt, Northumberland, Hector, Valiant, Minotaur, HMS Prince, Caledonia, Ocean, Achilles, Royal Oak, Royal Alfred, Fervent, Repulse, Bellerophon, Bold, Invincible, Iron Duke, Vanguard, Sultan, Agility, Triumph, Hercules, Belle Isle, Orion, Magnificent, Flavor, Ravager, Thor, Rupert, a total of 31 ironclad ships. William IV asked again, how many cruisers does Britain have? Louis Bell answered without difficulty, Discovery, Enterprise, Favorite, Fervent, Pallas, Penelope, a total of 6. William IV continued to ask, How many turret ships do you have? Louis Bell said, Monarch, Captain, Dreadnought, Neptune, Indomitable, a total of 5. William Ivey asked with a smile, how many heavy gunboats do they have? Louis Bell replied, Cerberus, Madara, Abyssinia, Gladden, Cyclops, Gorgon, Hecate, Hydra, a total of 8 ships. There are also 2 coastal defense ships, the Sovereign and Prince Albert, the central gunboat ship, the Lord Clyde and Lord Worden, 2 gunboats, and a reckless gunship. William IV, how many battleships are there in total? Louis Bell replied, a total of 55. William IV seemed very satisfied with the answer, so he asked the Chief of Staff and Minister of the Navy Jan Peter next to him, our Minister of the Navy, looking at the scale of 55 British battleships, will you feel stressed? Jan Peter answered firmly, no. William IV asked calmly, why? Jan Peter, because the Dutch Navy is stronger than them. William IV asked the Chief of Naval Staff Joseph Carls next to him, does your Excellency think so too? Joseph Carls said solemnly, yes. William IV frowned and asked, why are you so sure? Don't you know that we actually have fewer battleships than Britain? Right, Your Excellency, Minister of Armaments? I forgot to ask, how many battleships do we have? Louis Bell, the Netherlands has a total of 47 battleships. William IV asked as expected, since we have 7 fewer ships than others, the 2 giants of our navy are still so confident. I am curious about the configuration. How about you tell me about the composition? Facing William IV, he seemed to be asking for an answer in a friendly manner, but in fact he was giving an order. Louis Bell did not dare to lose his temper, and said, at present, we have 38 steam ironclad ships, including Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Antwerp, and The Hague, Congo, Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique, and Madagascar, UAE, Oman, Sumatra, Java, New Guinea, and Sulawesi, Alaska Peninsula, Hawaii, South Pacific Islands, New Zealand, and Suriname. Melbourne, William Province, South Australia, Western Australia, North Australia, Queensland, New South Wales, and Tasmania. Orange, Nassau, King William, Queen Alexandra, Prince Albert, Princess Anna, Prince Jacques, Princess Mary, Conqueror, and Tulip. William IV then asked, since there are 38 steam ironclad ships, what about the other 9? Louis Bell, 4 cruisers, the Return, the Renaissance, the Powerful Nation, and the Far East. In addition, there are 5 heavy gunboats, the Indian Ocean, the Pacific, the Christian, the Capital, and the Noble. William IV asked, does that mean we don't have the British turret ships and coastal defense ships, etc.? Louis Bell, no, we do, but they are sailing battleships. William IV breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that the current naval direction of the Netherlands is placed on heavy battleships, but light ships have been relaxed. He suddenly said to Mark Rudd, who was calm next to him, they all have confidence, so what is your plan, our Chief of Staff? Mark Rudd, Your Majesty, submarines are one of our most powerful weapons. The Netherlands currently has more than 100 submarines of various types, while the total number owned by other countries is only about the same as ours. How many are there in the UK? William IV asked. In the past 8 years, the UK has only 20 submarines, most of which have a short range, only about 50 nautical miles underwater. Mark Rudd laughed, we have already exceeded 1,000 nautical miles, including more than 200 nautical miles underwater. William IV, in other words, the UK's submarines can only operate near the coast, while ours can travel long distances. That's right. One of the reasons is to win with more people. With our longer range and better torpedo technology, we, the Netherlands, are definitely the king of the world underwater. Chapter 642, British and Dutch Warships Collision. 1878, the Second French Empire launched an attack on the Third French Republic in the Haute-Vienne province in the west of the central plateau of France. The North secretly dispatched 90,000 people, while the South had less than 20,000 people to resist in a hurry. Finally, after 22 hours of resistance, the capital Limoges fell. The failure of the Third French Republic in the south eventually caused a chain reaction, including the fall of 5 provinces, including Charente-Maritime, Charente, Haute-Vienne, Creuse, and Puy-de-Dôme. So far, since the establishment of the Third French Republic in 1869, the Second French Empire of Napoleon III in the north used war to push the default borderline between the two places southward for the first time. In particular, The failure of Puy-de-Dôme caused a huge shock to the entire Third French Republic in the south, and caused great joy in the Second French Empire in the north. Because Puy-de-Dôme is located in the central part of France, in the north of the Central Plateau, to the east is the narrow Loire province of France, and to the east of the Loire province is the Ain province, and the capital of the Third French Republic is the former capital of the Ain province. That is to say, if the Northern Army goes south and successfully launches an attack on the Loire province in the east, it can be at the gates of the southern capital Lyon. This is definitely good news for the northern people, but the south is gloomy. For this reason, the southern president Adolphe Thiers also urgently mobilized and deployed 120,000 people to defend around Lyon, and commanded the National Defense Force to urgently defend against the enemy in Gironde, Dordogne, and Corrèze, and increased troops in the Upper Loire province in the south of the Central Plateau. At the same time, Adolphe Thiers also sent a request for support to Berlin. On May 3, 1878, German Chancellor Bismarck publicly condemned the Second French Empire's peace-breaking behavior in Berlin. I think France should not suffer a major war disaster. The German Empire has always recognized that the South does not belong to French territory. We support the two sides of the South to conduct peace talks and resolve the disputes between the two sides. We support the One France policy and do not think that doing so will harm the interests of our German Empire. Therefore, we have adhered to this principle for 8 years from 1870 to now. We have repeatedly publicly called on His Majesty Napoleon III and President Adolphe Thiers to hold talks, just as the British Empire supported the President of the Confederation of America in North America, Stephen Douglas, and the President of the South, Alexander Stephens, to hold peace talks. British Prime Minister Clayton and I both believe that peaceful negotiations are always better than artillery fire and mutual attacks, so I am now in Berlin to call on the Paris government again not to launch any attacks against the South that undermine peace, because this is unpopular in the international community. You are the French fighting the French. The German Empire is willing to provide all the conditions for negotiations, such as being willing to become an intermediary country for negotiations between the two sides and providing a place for negotiations. Well, it can be a place for negotiations in Alsace and Lorraine. As soon as Bismarck's call came out, many people were stunned. Why? Because he had solemnly expressed his love for peace before, but the venue provided at the next moment was the Alsace and Lorraine region that the German Empire had forced Napoleon III to cede. Isn't this deliberately provoking Napoleon III and the northern regime? So no one thought that Napoleon III would eat this. Sure enough, on May 8, 1878, after the Second French Empire took over the 5 western provinces, it began to gather troops to press the northern army of Dordogne province. At the same time, Napoleon III also sent the English Channel Fleet in the north to the south to integrate in Quiberon Bay, preparing to attack the Southern Navy in the Bay of Burnouf in the Dordogne province from the sea and land, and defeat the largest naval base of the French Third Republic in the Atlantic. In this case, the situation was urgent. On May 9, 1878, Bismarck appeared again at the press conference and made it clear that he was dissatisfied with Napoleon II's hostile attitude towards the South and his disdain for the German Empire's attitude of peacemaking. For this reason, the German Empire was willing to make some radical moves in order to maintain peace on the European continent. No one knows what this so-called radical move is, because Bismarck did not say it clearly, but one thing is that this is definitely aimed at Napoleon III in Paris. For this reason, senior officials in Paris began to feel uneasy, and even many capitals and nobles who had enjoyed 8 years of peaceful life dissuaded Napoleon III from attacking the south. The reason they found was that more troops could be deployed in the east to guard against the German Empire, and they reminded Paris that it should not fall into the clutches of the German Empire for the second time. Obviously, they were reminding Napoleon III not to forget the past, that Paris was occupied by the German Empire due to Napoleon II's improper operation in 1870. Perhaps the atrocities of the German Empire in those years made the fear of the people of Paris linger, so many people in the public also asked Napoleon II to stop while he was ahead. Taking over the 5 provinces has greatly satisfied the majesty of Napoleon III, and Napoleon II does not have to continue to expand the results of the war. Just when he was about to stop pretending to be sorry, and the international community was relieved, a piece of news in the Far East shifted the world's attention from France, even Napoleon III. On May 10, 1878, the British Empire and the Kingdom of the Netherlands had a warship conflict on the island of Grenada in the Nicobar Islands. The British cruiser and 2 sailing warships participated in the conflict. The Netherlands had the battlecruiser Renaissance, the heavy gun battleship Indian Ocean, and 3 level 5 sailing warships. The small fleet of the British HMS Hot Pillow cruised eastward from Sri Lanka Island, preparing to enter the Burmese Sea through the Nicobar Islands and then enter Malacca. But at this time, the Dutch fleet had just cruised the waters south of Sumatra Island and was preparing to enter from the waters between Gamolda Island and Little Nicobar Island. The so-called enemies are particularly jealous when they meet. The 2 sides confronted each other. The commander of the British HMS Hot Pillow, which was cruising, claimed that the Nicobar Islands belonged to British territory and asked the Dutch Renaissance and Indian Ocean to leave and not pass through the archipelago. This is too much? The Netherlands has always refused to recognize that the Nicobar Islands belong to Britain but to the Netherlands. So the British request could not be met. Even the Dutch Renaissance and Indian Ocean directly docked in the south of Gamolda Island to approach. The cruising HMS Hot Pillow naturally could not watch the Dutch warships do this. Otherwise, what is the purpose of the cruise? So the British HMS Hot Pillow also approached to try to stop the other side. Suddenly, something incredible happened. A Dutch 5th-class sailing warship hit the British cruiser, the Pillow of Heat, with such force that the 600-ton Dutch 5th-class sailing warship with a full crew of 200 people capsized without the protection of armor, and the people fell into the water. This shocked everyone. The Dutch fleet was naturally unwilling to give up, so they prepared to attack the British fleet. At this time, the British fleet was naturally unwilling to bear the anger of the Netherlands for losing a warship, so the British fleet wisely chose to flee. Yes, it turned around and went directly into the Western Indian Ocean, in the opposite direction of the Strait of Malacca. Whoever doesn't run is a fool. On the Pillow of Heat. It was a close call. We were almost hit by the shells of the Dutch heavy gunboat Indian Ocean. The firepower of the Dutch heavy gunboat is no weaker than that of our British Empire's heavy gunboats, and their speed is even stronger than ours. If we hadn't dispatched the fast cruiser HMS Hot Pillow this time, we might have faced an attack from a cruiser of the same level, the HMS Renaissance, and the heavy gunboat Indian Ocean. At that time, there would be only one result, that is, being sunk or captured. General, it was under your wise leadership that we escaped. What's more exciting is that all 3 of our warships survived. We defeated the enemy with fewer troops and made the Netherlands lose a 5th-level sailing ship. The 45-year-old Captain Hutfield of the HMS Hot Pillow is also the commander of this patrol fleet. He has won many honors in the British Navy many times. During the American Civil War in North America, he was arranged to support the Confederate Navy of the South and became the highest-ranking naval lieutenant in the British support for the South. During the 5-Year War, he helped the South train a large number of naval elites. He was transferred back to London before 1870. In 1875, 3 years ago, he was promoted to Major General and became one of the 3 major naval commanders of the Indian Ocean Fleet. He was in charge of the cruise affairs of the Indian Ocean and the Malay Peninsula. He often went to the cruise sites in person for cruises, so he had a great reputation in the British Navy. The dispute between the Netherlands and Britain in the Strait of Malacca made him think that this was an opportunity, so he appeared on this route frequently recently. As long as he performed the cruise mission seriously and stopped the ambitions of the Netherlands, his chance to be promoted to British Navy Vice Admiral in the future will soon be realized. The words of the Deputy General just now made him feel that he was closer to realizing his dream of promotion. 3 ships against 7 ships, he also let the other side sink 1 ship, and he completely escaped. This achievement should be enough for him to make a deep mark in the British military merit book. Even for this, he might become a hero-level figure discussed on the streets of Britain and a role model for British children. Even his name will become a household name in Europe. From then on, Hutfield successfully entered the vision of European countries. When he thought of this, he said directly to his Deputy General, "Hurry up and prepare a telegram to send our news back to London. Do you know how to write it to highlight us?" The Deputy General nodded in understanding. Chapter 643, Blackmailing the Nicobar Islands. When the news from the Far East reached London on May 11, 1878, it was just as Hutfield had imagined. It caused a huge shock in the British military and political circles, and then spread in Britain. Many people were proud of Hutfield's actions. As Prime Minister, Clayton naturally became one of the objects of people's praise. Queen Victoria also became the object of people's discussion. In short, The whole of Britain seemed to be immersed in the reverie of a classic case of winning with fewer troops in the Dutch-British maritime confrontation. However, Queen Victoria was not confused by this. She summoned Prime Minister Clayton for this. Now the whole of Britain is immersed in a state of excitement. Prime Minister, do you think what happened this time is really that good for Britain? Queen Victoria frowned and said worriedly, my right eye keeps twitching. Is this a bad sign? Queen Victoria also studied Eastern metaphysics, so she even used metaphysical colors to measure many new buildings of the British royal family. Just like the most famous saying in the Far East that the left eye twitches for wealth and the right eye twitches for disasters, she also believed it. Before my grandmother launched the Opium War against the Far Eastern countries in 1840, he began to understand the object. At that time, she was very interested in the metaphysics of the Far East. So she was deeply involved in it as soon as she learned it. Now she seemed to have a bad premonition, so she hurriedly summoned Prime Minister Clayton to learn more and see if there was anything she had overlooked. Clayton was not surprised by this. He was a very talented and conceited person. Otherwise, he would not have become the second heir of the Tory party at a young age, second only to Disraeli, who was already famous at the time. Because of his conceit, when he saw that the Whig Party was in a period of transition and the Tories disagreed with his political views, he led a group of allies who advocated free trade to quit the Tories and join the Whigs in 1859 under the goodwill of Viscount Palmerston and Russell. He immediately caused a sensation in British politics and successfully became the first heir to the Whig Party. From then on, Longchamp and Disraeli competed for the position of Prime Minister in the British political arena. But because of this, he became the best evidence of the division in British politics. He smiled bitterly and said, the current atmosphere in Britain is so bad that even if we say anything that is not conducive to the atmosphere, it will only have a negative effect. Your Majesty, all we can do now is to appease the Netherlands and at the same time be prepared to prevent the Netherlands from attacking us. Although Queen Victoria was still uneasy, she had to admit in her heart that Prime Minister Clayton's statement was not bad. You can't guard against thieves for 1,000 days. At present, this is the only thing we can do. But for some reason, she still seems so uneasy. At this moment, Crown Prince Edward hurried in, and the two saw from his face that his face was full of disbelief. Seeing this, Clayton immediately recalled what Queen Victoria had just said. And Queen Victoria was even more uneasy. The 35-year-old Crown Prince Edward walked in quickly, and then said angrily, Mother, the Netherlands finally couldn't help it after a day. Queen Victoria and Claxton looked at each other, and the latter asked, Your Highness, what did the Netherlands say? Crown Prince Edward said angrily, Just now, the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs held a press conference in Melbourne. At the meeting, Dutch Foreign Minister Huspert van strongly condemned the British Navy's lawless and undisciplined practice of destroying sovereignty in the Nicobar Islands, a Dutch territory. He even said that Britain is the world's largest peace destroyer and asked Britain not to destroy peace in the Far East again. At the same time, he also announced that more than 168 of the 200 naval soldiers of the Dutch Silent V-class sailing battleship Silent have been salvaged, and 32 are still missing. However, he announced that the Netherlands will not give up the salvage activities and declared that he wants to see the bodies alive or dead. Huspert van also announced that due to the complex terrain, in order to better facilitate salvage activities, he announced that the Netherlands has deployed more than 10 warships to the nearby port of Banda Aceh on Sumatra Island, and blockaded the Nicobar Islands to facilitate the search for life. It was also announced that the sunken warship would be salvaged. The Dutch foreign minister also declared that the blockade would last for 20 years. Blockade of the Nicobar Islands for 20 years for salvage? Queen Victoria was stunned. Claxton was even more surprised. They had thought of thousands of counterattacks from the Netherlands before, but they never thought that the Netherlands would choose to respond in this way. They were stunned. Crown Prince Edward said in a sad tone, the Netherlands is obviously making a fuss about this incident. It is obvious that they want to occupy the Nicobar Islands. This is a major challenge to Britain's maritime status. He raised his head and said resolutely, Mother, Prime Minister, we can't let the Dutch conspiracy succeed, otherwise, our future position in the Far East will be shaken because of this incident, and we may even cause various diplomacy to think that we are taking advantage of North Holland. Queen Victoria sighed and said, but we have become the bad guys first. The news of Major General Hatfield's victory over the Netherlands has spread throughout Britain and Europe. Our British warships sank the Dutch warships. This is a fact that we cannot deny now. This has made us unreasonable first. Now the Netherlands' practice is to impose a blockade in the name of salvage. This has already stood on the moral high ground. How can we stop it? Crown Prince Edward said, "We can participate in the salvage activities in the Nicobar Islands in the name of joint search and rescue. In that way, we can shatter William IV's idea." After years of influence, Crown Prince Edward is no longer the playboy and unlearned heir to the British throne. He has become a standard heir, so his sensitivity is not bad. Queen Victoria's eyes lit up at this, but she still shook her head and finally denied it. The Netherlands has currently occupied the moral high ground. They can directly worry that we will not sincerely support them, so we have been rescued. What's more, the Netherlands can use this to win over allies to join. Clayton also said, since the Netherlands has already formulated this plan, they will not easily let us intervene and interrupt them. He sighed and said, "I think what we should worry about now is that the Nicobar Islands have become part of the Dutch blockade islands. After losing it, how will British warships enter the Malay Peninsula and how to continue to deal with the dispute between the Netherlands and us in the Strait of Malacca?" He worriedly said, "What I'm more worried about is whether the Netherlands has any other tricks." Unfortunately, he came true. The Netherlands really had a trick, and it was very fierce. Chapter 644, Moral Kidnapping and Sectarian Attacks. Nicobar Islands, located in the eastern Indian Ocean and the west of the Strait of Malacca, the Portuguese first settled in the northern Nicobar Islands in 1789, but later failed to establish the envisioned colony due to bad weather. After the natives rebelled against Portugal in 1857, the British took over and turned this place into a place of harsh punishment for prisoners. It was under the jurisdiction of British India. The prison here has never released prisoners and has become a hell of reputation. Therefore, this place has also become the most reluctant and feared place in the British colonies in the Far East, because as long as you're captured and imprisoned here by the British, don't think about escaping, your life is over. When the Dutch fleet carried out salvage activities and forcibly blocked and landed on the islands on May 12, 1878, the Dutch media even announced a horrific incident, and European newspapers followed suit and reprinted it, which seriously hit the reputation of the British Empire. We never thought that a hell on earth would appear before our eyes. My God, in the 21 years since the British ruled in 1857, more than 17,591 prisoners, both indigenous and European, were imprisoned here, of which 11,850 died and only 5,741 survived, of which nearly half were dying. Such an archipelago with a prison background has become the latest portrayal of the British Empire. We cannot know the casualty index of the United States when the United Kingdom exiled prisoners to the United States, nor do we know what the death rate was when the United Kingdom exiled prisoners to Canada and Australia, because the United Kingdom never publishes the real data, and even does not disclose false news. Perhaps what I saw from the Nicobar Islands is just the tip of the iceberg, and perhaps the situation is even more serious. Although no one thinks that prison is a good place, no one thinks that prison will be a real hell. But now the news released by the Netherlands has made people feel more unfamiliar with the word prison, and even the word prison for exiled prisoners in the United Kingdom has become linked to the region in everyone's mind. In a prison with a mortality rate of more than 2/3, more than half of the living prisoners are dying. My God, only 1/6 of the prisoners in 21 years are still alive? This has triggered a large number of famous people's defenders to condemn Britain's actions internationally, and even many British people have asked Britain to publish the conditions of all overseas exiled prisoners. On May 14, 1878, bishops from various regions such as the Orthodox Church, Catholic Church and Protestant Church held a collective prayer for the prisoners who died in the Nicobar Islands prison. On May 15, 1878, the Protestant bishop of the Dutch Australian continent, Van Hall, announced that he would go to the Nicobar Islands to visit the 5,741 surviving prisoners in person. No one would think this is an accident. It can only be said that it is a tragedy of life caused by the British government. We strongly condemn the British government's actions because it is carrying out a human tragedy. With the increase in immigration, coupled with the return of Belgium to the Netherlands, part of the population is Catholic, so the current religious population ratio in the Netherlands has changed dramatically. Protestants account for 52% of the Dutch population, and Catholics currently account for 40%. Other Buddhist and other religious sects shared the remaining 8%. The Protestant Fangros approach inspired other sects to follow suit. On May 16, The Dutch Catholic Calvinist Bishop Eunice also announced that a prayer event would be held in Melbourne to pray for all the deceased. Eunice also asked Britain to truly treat prisoners correctly, rather than abuse them. The distinctive approach of the two Dutch Protestant and Catholic bishops immediately made the two major Christian sects occupy the moral high ground, which made the Orthodox Church immediately dissatisfied, so the Greek Orthodox Church and the Orthodox Church of the Russian Empire joined the condemnation. However, Britain would not compromise easily, so on May 19, 1878, all Europeans saw that the Protestant Anglican Church, which mainly supported the British royal family, and the Anglican Church, which was mainly composed of Anglos, all stood up to safeguard the interests of Britain and expressed dissatisfaction with other sects interfering in their parishes. I don't think that condemnation of Britain can be recognized by God. On the contrary, I think such condemnation hurts the good people of Britain and makes them suspicious of the condemners. This is contrary to spreading God's love. Therefore, our Anglican Church is dissatisfied with these actions, because God is universal, not partial. The statement issued by the Anglican Church immediately won the support of a large number of British people. This sect, which has always supported the British royal rule, is worthy of being the largest sect organization in Britain. Its statement immediately appeared in major British newspapers. At the same time, Anglicanism also condemned countries that criticized Britain in the Anglo-American territory. There were also British newspapers in Canada, India, the Confederate States of America, and even in the United States of America that published reports that were favorable to Britain from the perspective of British interests. Obviously, Britain was not afraid of pressure from other sects and was ready to resist. On May 20, 1878, the Protestant Lutheran Church, mainly in Denmark, Sweden, the German Empire, and Estonia, Latvia, and some parts of the Russian Empire, suddenly joined this religious siege. No one thinks that the prisoners are innocent, but no one thinks that they should be killed. They need to have a chance to reform, and the death rate in the Nicobar Islands prison is more than 5/6. This is appalling. I don't think this is an isolated incident. It has exceeded the borders of the United Kingdom, because all the prisoners may not only be British whites, but also a large number of indigenous people. This will create a huge missionary storm for our European sects to spread Christianity outside of Europe. The Nicobar Islands have increased the difficulty of missionary work for other sects, so this is a great loss for European Christian sects and a major sectarian public event. There is not much we can do. We can only call on the British government to improve the situation of this kind of thing that goes against God's original intention of peace for the world. At the same time, we will also have close contact with the Anglican Church and the Church of England in the future, trying to directly reflect the dissatisfaction and disgust of the people in our diocese to these sects in the UK. At the same time, we would like to propose that a collective meeting of Protestant, Eastern Orthodox and Catholic bishops be held in the Vatican to further carry out activities specifically for the Nicobar Islands prison incident in the UK. With a statement of the Lutheran Church, the boiling heat of Christianity seemed to be tamed. But everyone understood that this was just the calm before the storm, because the storm was about to come. Laymen thought it was the mercy of the sect, but insiders knew that it was a large-scale attack on Britain organized by the Netherlands using the sect, and the degree of violence was unprecedented. This made Bismarck, a European strongman who knew the whole process, who was always gentle, furious. Not to mention other people in the European political arena. Chapter 645 Bismarck visits Melbourne. 1878, King William IV of the Netherlands met with the visiting German Prime Minister Bismarck at the Dutch Royal Palace in Melbourne. No one would have thought that the Netherlands would quietly infiltrate various sects so deeply, and that the Netherlands could use sects to achieve its established goals. Even the powerful Britain seemed to be defeated by this wave of religious attacks from the Netherlands. Even Britain is like this. What about other countries? The Netherlands did not play by the rules, which made people feel a little bit of fear. This is especially true for the Russian Empire, the German Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, etc. First, they used their ships to be sunk by the British to gain the sympathy of the international community, and then openly blocked the Nicobar Islands in the name of rescuing Dutch soldiers who fell into the sea, achieving the tangible benefits of truly ruling the Nicobar Islands. Britain had the idea of honor and psychological debt after sinking the other side's warships, and was used by the Netherlands. At this time, the Netherlands announced the British prison tragedy in the Nicobar Islands. This triggered public opinion condemning Britain and led to more dissatisfaction with Britain in the international community. At this time, Britain became a loner in public opinion. When everyone in the Netherlands was just attacking Britain with moral kidnapping, they didn't expect that the Netherlands had a backup plan, which was to use the Netherlands' policy of religious tolerance to make the Protestant, Catholic, Orthodox, and even Buddhist sects in the Netherlands stand up to condemn Britain as a pioneer. Then these sects used the links between the sects and the outside to drive the sects of other countries to stand in the same position as the Netherlands. In just a few days, all Christian sects attacked the British government. At this time, the two major forces of the Protestant Episcopal Church and the Anglican Church in Britain were powerless to turn the tide. There were only William IV and Bismarck in the entire reception room, and everyone else was dismissed. So the conversation between the two was very relaxed. And Bismarck spoke his mind frankly and accurately. Bismarck was 63 years old this year, and William IV had no tentacles. At the age of 38, he seemed to be well maintained and looked very young, as if he had just entered his 30s. This made Bismarck think of the 81-year-old William I in the German Empire, the Crown Prince Frederick who was still hesitating between anti-British and pro-British, and even the 19-year-old grandson of William, the future William II. His heart sank. The Dutch king in front of him seemed to be blessed by God, and everything went smoothly. Under the noses of Britain, France, and the German Empire, the Netherlands had developed into a powerful country that the German Empire was unwilling to defend, and Britain did not dare to start a war or even forced into a corner in just 20 years. This was something that no one could believe 20 years ago, but it happened in the past few days. The Netherlands' departure from Europe and arrival in the Far East is like a powerful dragon leaving the shallows and entering the deep sea, like a dragon swimming in the sea and sky. Your Majesty, under this wave of manipulation, I think it will be difficult for Britain to take back the Nicobar Islands. I even guess that Britain should be ready to compromise with the Netherlands. They have made the great British Empire so embarrassed. I think only the Netherlands can do it now. William IV looked at the other party with the eyes of a wise man, and then a smile appeared on his face. Although the Dutch attack is good, it also depends on the person who takes it. No one has ever thought that Queen Victoria, who has ruled the British Empire for 39 years, is a woman who can be easily defeated. On the contrary, she is currently the most powerful monarch in Europe. So as the Prime Minister of the German Empire, don't be deceived by this respected woman. Bismarck shook his head and said, I have never underestimated Her Majesty the Queen, but compared to Queen Victoria, I am more optimistic about William IV. William IV showed curiosity and asked, why is that? Seeing William IV's pretended expression, Bismarck did not feel uncomfortable, and said in a joking tone, because the territory occupied by Queen Victoria during her nearly 40 years of rule was not as much as Your Majesty's. William IV showed a helpless expression when he heard this, and smiled bitterly. Well, I have to admit that this is the best way to measure merit, but the Netherlands is now far away from Europe, and its influence on Europe is far less than that of Britain. Europe is the center of the world today. How can a Dutch king who is far away from the center of the world be favored by the famous Prime Minister Bismarck? I am very curious. It's not good for Your Majesty William to be far away from Europe, but his influence may not have left Europe. The Netherlands plus half of Belgium's territory is not large in area, but it is located at the center of Britain, France, Germany and Northern Europe, becoming a hub for land and sea transportation in various countries. This is where the Netherlands' influence on Europe lies. Bismarck said, what's more, the Netherlands has become a high-tech industrial exhibition venue in the Netherlands. At present, whether it is The Hague, Amsterdam, Rotterdam at sea, Antwerp province in the south of the sea and West Flanders province, they have formed the most advanced industrial city cluster in Europe. Therefore, Your Majesty's statement is hard to agree with. William IV chuckled, and then said, I think His Excellency Bismarck is more optimistic about the future of the Netherlands than I, the King of the Netherlands. Since Your Excellency is so optimistic, I wonder if Prime Minister Bismarck is preparing for the German Empire to manage its relationship with the Netherlands? Investing in promising stocks in the future is very important. Bismarck's heart moved when he heard this. Because the founder of the currently popular stocks and securities around the world is officially the Netherlands. In 1603, under the leadership of Adenbervelt, the Grand Speaker of the Dutch Republic, the Dutch government and the East India Company were established. Just as they created an unprecedented country, they also created an unprecedented organization. The Netherlands established the world's first joint stock company. In order to raise funds, they issued stocks, but not today's stocks. People came to the East India Company's office and wrote down the borrowed money in a notebook. The company promised to pay dividends on these stocks. This is how the Dutch East India Company raised funds. The company successfully grew, and European countries followed suit, so there are today's stocks. And because the world's earliest joint stock company system was born in the East India Company established in the Netherlands in 1602, the joint stock company, as a corporate organizational form, soon appeared and was widely used in capitalist countries. It became an important form of corporate organization in capitalist countries. With the birth and development of joint stock companies, the stock form has also been developed, and the need for the sale and transfer of stocks has arisen, which has led to the emergence and formation of the stock market, and promoted the improvement and development of the stock market. In 1611, shareholders began to trade stocks at the Amsterdam Stock Exchange, and later there were special brokers to match transactions. The Amsterdam Stock Exchange formed the world's first stock exchange market. Now the joint stock company has become the most basic form of enterprise in Europe and even in many parts of the world. Stocks have become an important channel and method for large European and American companies to raise important funds, and are also the basic choice of investment. The stock market and bond market, composed of stock issuance and trading, have become the important basic content of the current securities market in the world. Bismarck seemed to be thinking about this question that William IV seemed to have said unintentionally. Smart people don't need to say everything too clearly, because this will lose a lot of things for reference. For example, now William IV mentioned asking the German Empire how to invest in Germany and the Netherlands. Although it is asking, it is actually a test, and it is an answer that needs to be answered carefully. Although Bismarck has been in politics for more than 30 years, he was embarrassed by this question, because no matter how to answer this question, it seems to be a promise-like answer. If it does not develop in this way in the future, then how should Bismarck answer when facing William IV's fingerprints in the future? He secretly sighed that William IV was really amazing. The Netherlands is currently focusing on the Far East, while the German Empire is focusing on Europe. So I think the conflict of interest between the German Empire and the Netherlands has been reduced to a minimum. Bismarck asked, "Does Your Majesty agree with this statement?" Answer in stages, and answer while asking. William IV secretly praised, "Prime Minister Bismarck is really smart." However, his face showed an indifferent expression. Although I don't want to admit it, I have to say that it is just the analysis closest to reality under the current situation. This is the answer I want. Bismarck smiled and continued, "The Netherlands now seems to have given up the idea of participating in the internal hegemony in Europe. This is naturally satisfactory for the major European countries. Therefore, I think if the Netherlands announces that it will become a neutral country in Europe, the German Empire will be the first to stand up and support it." William IV said with a smile, "But what about the Netherlands' Nordic alliance allies Denmark, Sweden and even Spain?" Bismarck smiled and said, "Didn't the Netherlands give the dominance of the Nordic alliance to Spain as early as 9 years ago, 1870? William IV said without comment, "The Netherlands needs allies. After all, the situation in Europe in the future is dangerous, so we must protect the Netherlands' land in Europe. Of course, more importantly, the Netherlands needs to use allies to carry out more sieges or counterattacks against countries that are hostile to the Netherlands." Bismarck failed in his attempt to persuade the Netherlands to become a neutral country. His face only showed a little disappointment before returning to normal, saying, "The German Empire is willing to support the Netherlands in challenging the current world's #1 position in London, England, in finance, stocks and securities." William IV immediately showed a sincere smile, and immediately laughed. "Really? Sure enough, the German Empire still supports the Netherlands the most. The Netherlands is indeed spying on this." Before Bismarck came, he had analyzed the purpose of the current dispute between the Netherlands and Britain, and naturally understood it in his mind. Maritime hegemony is one, but financial hegemony is also the reason why the Kingdom of the Netherlands is currently challenging Britain. Chapter 646, The Hague International Court of Justice Summit. "I think Europe is about to usher in a mourning frenzy." William IV said, "We also need more preparations to speed up the construction of airships. The Anglo-Dutch War may not be far away. Originally, world peace might last until the early 1920s. Due to the rise of the Netherlands, Britain has realized that it must stop the Netherlands. 9 years ago in Greece, in order to reassure Queen Victoria, William IV proposed to the Queen the Dutch-British naval hegemony. So in the past 9 years, the Netherlands has been calm around the Netherlands, and Britain has also received support from the Netherlands in its maritime hegemony. However, with the collision of the two countries' status in the Far East, after 9 years of precipitation, it has accumulated to a point that is difficult to suppress, especially the Dutch Navy has now reached a scale of 350,000, and the British Navy is only 390,000 tons. If this gap is calculated based on the tonnage of the British steam battleship Warrior, 920 tons, it is only a matter of 4 or 5 Warriors. Although the Dutch submarines occupy most of the tonnage, submarines are also a kind of naval strength. That's why Britain will repeatedly stop suppressing the internal suppression of the Netherlands. The Netherlands is even more solid after operating in Australia in the Far East. William IV believes that if Britain dares to attack Australia, it will definitely be a very tragic loss. It is precisely because of this understanding that Britain hesitates and dares not cross the pond. Your Majesty, we are far away from the European mainland at present, but we have become the object of many European countries' scramble to win over. At the International Court of Justice in The Hague on June 20th, we may encounter more goodwill. I wonder what you think, Gerrit de Vries asked carefully. At present, the Dutch political arena is a three-way competition. His Liberal Party will have a hard time dealing with the challenges of the Christian Party and the Socialist Party in the general election at the end of this year. As far as he knows, the Socialist Party and the Christian Party seem to have plans to form a coalition government. If the two major parties really run for the election at the end of the year, then the Liberal Party, which was originally the only one, will face a general election failure. Because of this, the current hope of the Liberal Party to win seems to come from the support of His Majesty William IV mentioned by Thorbecke. If the support of William IV can be obtained, the hope of the Liberal Party's victory will exceed 7 levels. The Liberal Party has been in power for 17 years since 1862, transition in 1870, each term is 4 years. So in front of William IV, he lowered his attitude. William IV thought of the International Court of Justice in The Hague. On June 19, 1878, the International Court of Justice Summit was about to be held in The Hague, Netherlands, which immediately attracted the attention of the international community. The summit was attended by British Chrysanthemum, German Empire Bismarck, Prime Minister Charles of the Second French Empire, Prime Minister of the Russian Empire Gorchakov, Prime Minister of the Austro-Hungarian Empire Archduke Rainer Ferdinand, Spanish Prime Minister Ramon Narvaez, Prime Minister of the Ottoman Empire Prince Abdul Vasi, and Swedish Prime Minister Louis de Geer, Count Louis the Elder. Danish Prime Minister Monrad, Italian Prime Minister Marco Minghetti, Portuguese Prime Minister Nuno Barreto, American Federal President Stephen Douglas, Belgian Prime Minister Rafi Hall, Argentine President Mitre, Ecuadorian President Moreno, Venezuelan President Herrera, Colombian President Mosquera, Brazilian Prime Minister Fonseca, Paraguayan President Palas, Peruvian President Prado, Chilean President Mascaano, Mexican President Benito Juarez, King Chulalongkorn of the Kingdom of Siam, and other international prime ministers or presidents participated in the meeting. It was also the first time since the Netherlands established the organization that a prime minister-level summit was held. Another focus of the summit was whether Dutch Prime Minister Gerrit de Vries and British Prime Minister Clayton would hold talks on the dispute over the Strait of Malacca in the Far East, which attracted everyone's attention. Whether the German Prime Minister and the French Prime Minister Charles held talks to discuss the German Empire's support for the French Third Republic regime in southern France was also the focus of the summit. At the same time, the King of the Far East Kingdom of Siam, Chulalongkorn, who appeared on European territory for the first time as a king, was also the focus of many people at this summit. The relevant countries may take advantage of this rare opportunity to hold side meetings, and Vern seems to be more interesting than the formal activities on the field. In addition to Prime Minister Gerrit de Vries of the host country, the Netherlands, Britain and Germany have become the focus of the summit. In addition, the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Russian Empire are also in the spotlight. This time, the German Empire and the Second French Empire have become formal members, which will allow the organization to completely cover the entire European and American countries. It is said that Dutch Prime Minister Gerrit de Vries has more than 50 meetings of various sizes, and Claxton is not far behind, with more than 30 bilateral meetings, and Bismarck has reached 28. In the interaction between Gerrit de Vries and the prime ministers of the two major countries, Bismarck and Claxton, They may deliberately look at their strategic autonomy. Among them, the Netherlands' series of performances in the International Court of Justice in The Hague is very noteworthy. Like its role in other organizations, the Netherlands also has a very strong mainstream color within the International Court of Justice in The Hague. In its interactions with various countries, the Netherlands will definitely show a unique label. In this regard, many people speculate that the Netherlands will use its position in the organization to besiege Britain and maintain its position, just like it besieged the German Empire and the French Empire. However, many people believe that it is difficult for the Netherlands to do what it did in the past, because the Netherlands was the only major power at that time, and the 6 major European countries had already joined in. The Netherlands' position has been diluted to the point that it is almost difficult to maintain its dominant position. If the Netherlands chooses that, then the Netherlands will lose its status as a permanent host country, which will be a huge loss for the Netherlands, so the Netherlands will not take risks easily. Of course, some people also believe that the Netherlands may use the organization's plan to use other countries as intermediaries to ease relations with Britain. This is what the Netherlands should and must do. Only in this way can the Netherlands maintain its own development, both militarily and economically. However, there are people who support this point, but there are also many people who oppose it. In short, the International Court of Justice in The Hague will be held tomorrow, and the international community has participated in various possibilities of the summit. And William IV in the Far East is also making various arrangements, because he wants to give a gift to tomorrow's summit, one of which is a shocking gift. Chapter 645 was uploaded incorrectly and uploaded to the 6th volume. You can go to the last chapter of the previous volume to read it. Chapter 647 Modernized Country. On June 20, 1878, when German Chancellor Bismarck met with British Prime Minister Claxton, he first mentioned the 20-year deal between the two. Then, when he expressed his views on the Anglo-Dutch dispute, he advised the British Prime Minister in front of all other Prime Ministers or Presidents that now is not the time for war. Bismarck won the moral high ground for the German Empire with just this sentence and quickly won the recognition of all member states. Interestingly, the press release issued by the German Foreign Ministry did not mention this at all. In addition to the diplomatic rhetoric that won face, the German Empire actually strengthened its economic and trade exchanges with Britain. Last month, the naval exercises with Britain in the Northwest Indian Ocean and the mutual visits between the two sides in Somalia, the German Empire and the Maldives, the British Empire, were a great breakthrough. Since the Anglo-Dutch Far East conflict in 1877, the German Empire's imports from Britain have increased by 2.5 times. Before the Anglo-Dutch Far East Malacca Strait conflict, the total imports from Britain to the German Empire accounted for about 6% of the total imports, but now it has soared to 15%. Similarly, the German Empire also showed a balancing skill in dealing with the Dutch issue. Before the International Hague Court organized the Prime Minister, President, Summit, German Prime Minister Bismarck took the lead in visiting Melbourne, the capital of the Netherlands, in the Far East in late May. The two sides also reached an agreement on the German Empire to import the second-generation submarines of the Netherlands. In order to win over the German Empire, the Netherlands even sold the second-generation submarine technology to the German Empire. This was obviously deliberately creating the results of the meeting between the two sides to be made public. Claxton had allied with Germany and France many times with the Netherlands. The two countries fell into a proxy conflict because of the issue of using Germans and Dutch to grab the influence of the United States, and even the two countries fought against each other in Europe. Therefore, the outside world attached great importance to whether Gerrit de Vries and Claxton took the opportunity to meet in The Hague, but the two sides did not confirm or deny whether they would meet bilaterally outside the venue until the end of the meeting, which aroused the appetite of the outside world. Both of them also coincidentally missed the Prime Minister's dinner on June 19, which aroused speculation from the outside world. Prime Minister Gerrit de Vries and Clayton stood next to each other at the summit press conference, but they were extremely cold. The two did not hold a public bilateral meeting in the end. The public indifference of the British and Dutch Prime Ministers is in line with everyone's previous speculation that the two sides settled the dispute first before having a normal relationship, avoiding domestic doubts, especially when the elections in their respective countries are close, fearing a backlash from the public, which would be unhelpful to their own party's election. However, the British and Dutch Prime Ministers can now talk face-to-face in the same conference room, and the hatred value is still reduced a lot. In fact, The current British Foreign Secretary Granville Gower publicly mentioned earlier that only Britain and the Netherlands can work together to achieve peace in the Indian Ocean, which is also laying the groundwork for a relaxing atmosphere. Since the German Empire and the Second French Empire have just become new members of the International Court of Justice in The Hague, the international influence of this organization will increase. The German Empire, which has replaced the French Empire as the hegemon of Central and Western Europe, will also increase its influence in the international arena. On the one hand, the German Empire had to deal with different expectations from other members of the organization. On the other hand, the German Empire also had to reconcile its role between the great powers of Britain, the Netherlands, France, Russia, and the Austrians, Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire. How the German Empire continued to wander in the mutually exclusive group politics was quite interesting. On June 21, 1878, Hugh Smith, the president of the University of Cambridge and the dean of the School of Political Science, the top university in the British Empire, published his views on the Prime Minister-level summit of the International Court of Justice in The Hague in the European Times, which had European influence, and immediately attracted a lot of attention. In particular, the views on the relationship between Britain and the Netherlands have aroused people's speculation about the attitude of Britain in the face of the Strait of Malacca conflict between Britain and the Netherlands. Is the public statement of Hugh Smith, the president of the University of Cambridge and the dean of the School of Political Science, at this time a statement from the British government to the outside world? In short, this is the first time since the Strait of Malacca dispute between Britain and the Netherlands in 1876 that someone in Britain has systematically and specifically expressed relevant views, which shows that Britain seems to have begun to change its previous response mode. Far East Kingdom of the Netherlands, Australia, New South Wales, University of Sydney. Teacher, are modernization and modernism the same? No, modernization and modernism are two different things. Modernization is first of all a social academic term used to describe a series of complex changes that occur in the process of a community moving from backwardness to modernity. Modernization begins with a traditional society based on agriculture and farmers, where the vast majority of the population cultivates the land and produces the food they need. Then teacher, what is the end point of modernization? The end point of modernization is an urbanized, industrialized modern society, where most people make their livings in towns and factories. Most European economists believe that there are about 30 to 40 changes in the first place, which are interrelated and each is an indispensable part of the entire process of change. Today, industrialization and the Industrial Revolution are generally regarded as a crucial part and stage of the modernization process. Since the emergence of agriculture, alchemy and towns in the Neolithic Age, no change has had such a profound impact on human life as the advent of industrialization. Teacher, which country was the first to industrialize? Is it Britain? While it is generally acknowledged that industrialization began first in Britain, or rather in certain parts of Britain, such as Lancashire, Yorkshire, the Black Country, Tyneside, Clydebank, and South Wales, it soon spread to continental Europe, especially to areas located in or near the great coalfields of Belgium, the Ruhr, and Silesia. The influence of modernization spread from these industrial concentrations, first to the ports, then to the major cities, and finally to the whole country, stimulated by industrialization. Modernization never stopped, and its influence changed the face of Europe at various levels. Is modernization only in Europe? No, modernization has already expanded from Europe to other countries decades ago. Teacher, how did it expand? It is either the result of the expansion of the imperial economy to overseas colonies, or the local initiative, but its impact is regarded as Europeanization. Teacher, in this case, modernization is very confusing. How do we distinguish between these advanced modernized countries and those that are postmodernized? Of course there are ways to distinguish them. Modernization is not only the focus of the world economic system, but also the difference between developed and developing countries. Then teacher, who are currently developed countries and who are developing countries? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 648, which is the most industrialized country in the world? Currently, there are only two highly developed countries in the world's first tier, namely the Netherlands and the British Empire, The second tier of moderately developed countries includes 4 countries, namely the German Empire, the Second French Empire, Belgium, and the Third French Republic. The third tier of lowly developed countries also includes 7, namely the United States of America, Denmark, Sweden, Belgium, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Spain, and Portugal. Then teacher, what about developing countries? Developing countries are also divided into 3 categories. The highly developing countries include Italy, Greece, Switzerland, the United States of America, and Argentina. The moderately developing countries include Brazil, the Russian Empire, Chile, Venezuela, and the Kingdom of Siam. The primary developing countries, poor countries, include Mexico, Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador, Paraguay, and Uruguay. Then teacher, what evidence do the 11 developed countries have to receive such an evaluation? Of course there's evidence. Teacher, what evidence? Hey, everyone, wait and take a look at the Australian Daily in my hand now. Find the front page, and take a look at the bold title, Who are the developed countries in the world? You can see it. The University of Sydney ranks second in the world in this year's new international university rankings, second only to the University of Cambridge in the UK, which shows how powerful its teaching is. Since William IV proposed the education reform law in 1862, the Netherlands has invested heavily in education every year to change the Dutch education track. In 1864, 10 universities were established in the Australian continent and the Dutch East Indies in the Far East, namely the University of Sydney, the University of Melbourne, the Australian National University, also in Melbourne, the University of Queensland, the University of Adelaide, the University of Western Australia, the University of New South Wales, the University of Jakarta, the University of New Guinea, and the University of Makassar, Sulawesi. The first 8 of them entered the top 50 of the international university rankings this year. Although the University of New Guinea and the University of Makassar are at the back, they are also within the top 100. Together with the 6 universities in Europe, it can be said that Dutch education is absolutely world-class. As the most advanced university in the Netherlands, the University of Sydney's education program is also the object of study for all universities in the Netherlands. Today, many university teachers from other universities in the Netherlands participated in the lectures held by the University of Sydney. Therefore, the interaction in the classroom just now made people sigh that the University of Sydney is worthy of being the highest institution of learning in the Netherlands. The teaching method is indeed special, especially the competitive interaction between teachers and students, which is daunting. It must be said that it is difficult for a teacher with strong ability to deal with the question that he will not give up until he reaches the Yellow River. However, they couldn't help but be curious. What the lecturer said, who are the developed countries in the world, also attracted their attention. On June 24, 1878, the Australian Institute, one of the 3 major Dutch institutions, joined forces with the Amsterdam Peace Research Institute and the Centre for Strategic and Budgetary Assessments, a think tank at the University of The Hague, and brought together more than 20 world-renowned Dutch economists such as Professor Torck of the University of Amsterdam, Dean of the School of Economics at the University of Groningen, and Professor Francisco Bob of the University of The Hague, to form an assessment agency. The internationally influential Australian Daily News published a report on the assessment of the global industrialization process, in which the economic levels of countries around the world were divided into grades. It detailed the economic strengths of each country and the reasons for the ranking order, which immediately made everyone's eyes light up, and even overshadowed the Prime Minister-level summit of the International Court of Justice in The Hague that was being held 2 days ago. It is said that even in the earliest industrialized British Empire, many people came out to support the list, saying that the list was fairly evaluated and was a valuable document worth seeing. The Netherlands is the most industrially developed country in the world. Industry is an important basic pillar of the Dutch economy. Most of the traditional and new industries such as steel smelting, machinery, automobile chemicals, etc. are concentrated in the southeastern coastal areas of the Australian mainland in Sydney, Melbourne, and Adelaide in the far east of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and the western coastal areas such as Amsterdam and Rotterdam east in the European mainland of the Netherlands. In addition, coal mines and steel are in Western Australia and Queensland. In the military industry, large warships and submarines can be produced independently. Adelaide, South Australia, and New Guinea Island have become the 3 major bases for the construction of the Dutch Navy together with Amsterdam. It is also introduced that the main industrial products of the Netherlands include energy, food processing, bicycles, automobiles, shipbuilding equipment, textiles, transportation equipment, communication equipment, telegraph, telephone, radio, steel, petroleum products, fertilizers, cement, plastics, daily necessities, as well as journalism, machinery and the currently world-renowned theatre and painting industries. The British Empire ranks second, including railways, energy, light textiles, papermaking, printing, publishing, construction, shipbuilding, food, tobacco, mining, iron and steel metallurgy, chemicals, machinery, military industry, and bicycles. These are the reasons why Britain is currently the most industrialized. The Second French Empire is one of the most developed countries. It is also at the forefront of the world in terms of railways and navigation. Iron and steel, construction, and shipbuilding are the three pillars of its industrialization. The main industries of the Second French Empire are mining, gun machinery manufacturing, metallurgy, shipbuilding, machinery manufacturing, textile chemistry, and construction. Oil processing technology is second only to the Netherlands and the United Kingdom, and the third in the world. The shipbuilding industry is second only to Britain, the Netherlands, and Germany, the United States of America, and the world's fifth. The steel industry and textile industry rank fifth in the world, but the industry is still dominated by traditional industrial sectors, among which steel construction is the main one. The German Empire is the fourth largest industrial country with developed industry. It is very strong in machinery, artillery, metallurgy, coal mines and steel. The Ruhr area is the traditional coal mining area of the German Empire. Munich is the largest bicycle manufacturing base in the German Empire. Hamburg and Stuttgart are the largest machine tool production bases in the German Empire. Wolfsburg is currently the largest manufacturing base for railway carriages in the German Empire, forming a powerful manufacturing cluster. Berlin, Leipzig, and Dresden are industrial centers in the eastern part of the German Empire, and new industries are concentrated in Munich. The United States of America is mainly based on basic industries, including energy industry, steel industry, and machinery industry. It has almost all industrial categories covering the world, that is, all industrial products can be self-sufficient. Once the external environment changes, substitutes can be found domestically. With the last shortcomings such as submarines and steam battleships being overcome, the United States of America has become the world's most comprehensive industrial country with comprehensive strength, second only to the Netherlands. With the release of this detailed analysis of the economies of various countries by the Australian Daily News, governments and people around the world have begun to look for shortcomings in their own countries. Of course, some people have speculated about the purpose of the Netherlands releasing this report at this time. Chapter 649, The Dilemma of the German Empire. William IV, who was far away in Melbourne, was giving lessons to his princes and princesses. Albert Christian William, who holds many titles including Prince of Orange, Duke of Nassau, and Grand Duke of Australia, was born in 1865. He is now 13 years old. At such a young age, he seems to have been influenced by William IV. His height has reached 1.7 meters. Queen Alexandra once predicted that he might grow to more than 1.9 meters in the end, which is higher than William IV's 1.85 meters. In this era, he is definitely superior. Princess Anna, Grand Duchess of Fukuoka, is 11 years old this year, and the twins Prince Jacques, Duke of Congo, and Princess Mary, Grand Duchess of Kenya, are both 8 years old. Prince Albert asked, "Why does father want to modernize the Netherlands?" The Netherlands must see modernization as an engine that drives change, not as a sum of its parts. This engine, or engine, must first be ignited, then accelerated, and finally achieve the critical takeoff and enter a completely different mode. It seems more appropriate to compare the modernization process to the train in the early 19th century. First there is a long preparation phase, the boiler is fired up, and enough steam pressure is gathered, and then it is time for the exciting moment of departure. The steam drives the pistons and the wheels turn, then there is the consolidation period, the engine vibrates and accelerates with a creaking sound, and finally there is the spectacular running stage, when the train makes a beautiful rumble and runs on the rails at maximum speed and power. Throughout the 19th century, most European governments worked hard to create the conditions for their countries to move from economic ignition to social takeoff. Some countries succeeded, some failed. Most Western European and Northern European countries also began the same process in the mid-19th century, First Belgium and the Netherlands, then Germany and France. According to the original history, by 1878, the resource-rich, vibrant and unified German Empire quickly caught up with the British Empire and led the entire European economy. Prince Albert asked, "I see that many countries are actually poor. Is this because modernization is difficult to achieve?" William IV nodded and smiled. Modernization is biased. In most countries, there is a significant contrast between modern urban areas and remote provinces. In the UK, England has begun to look at remote highlands and islands differently. Previously, France had formed a highly developed region around the Paris-Lyon-Marseille axis. In the Low Countries, Lille, Liège, Amsterdam, Rotterdam and the surrounding highly developed regions were formed in the Netherlands. The German Empire is the Rhine-Ruhr-Berlin-Saxony-Silesia region. The Austro-Hungarian Empire is the Bohemia-Vienna-Budapest center. Italy is moderately developed in Lombardy, but other places are highly developed, which lowers the overall level of Italy. In addition, places like Ireland, Brittany, Galicia and Sicily are extremely underdeveloped. Princess Anna next to him suddenly asked, "What about the Russian Empire?" William IV looked at his eldest daughter lovingly and replied with a smile, "The Russian empires St. Peter and Moscow have moved towards modernization due to Alexander II's all-out reforms, and have now reached the level of development of the imperial capital, but other places are poor and backward, so the development differences between its various regions are also the largest among European countries. Due to the different levels of development between countries and between domestic regions, the economic differences between European countries are now very prominent. In fact, in the nearly 80 years of the 19th century, Europe formed two completely different economic belts. One is the advanced region of universal industrialization and modernization, that is, Western Europe and Northern Europe, and the other is the backward region that is industrializing but has not yet achieved modernization to a large extent, that is, Southern Europe and Eastern Europe. The former first participated in the global gig economy dominated by Britain and the Netherlands, and promoted its economic system by acquiring overseas colonies like Britain. Southern and Eastern Europe can only become sources of food, raw materials and cheap labor, as well as controlled industrial product markets. William IV couldn't help but sigh when he said this. At this moment, Prince Jacques next to him asked, "The German Empire is currently catching up with Britain and our Kingdom of the Netherlands in European industry. What is the position of the German Empire in industrialization?" "I don't want you to be interested in the German Empire, Jacques." One of the main contradictions faced by the German Empire in the previous life was that although it had become the most dynamic country in industrialization, it failed to obtain corresponding colonies due to political and timing reasons. In this way, after the German Empire was unified in 1871, it immediately established close economic ties with Eastern European countries. In order to compensate for the failure in colonies, if the division between Western Europe and Northern Europe was largely a religious and political division, now it has a strong economic color. Now due to the rise of the Netherlands, it has attracted the attention of Britain, allowing the German Empire to expand its overseas colonies a lot, so at present the German Empire has not yet reached a real reconciliation with the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The alliance between the two countries in the future has not yet appeared. Instead, due to the division of the French Empire into two, the alliance between the German Empire and the French Third Republic in the south has become an accident. If history remains unchanged, Italy will become an ally of the German Empire under the coercion, inducement of the German Empire in the future. With the addition of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the alliance camp of World War I will be much larger than in the previous life. The camp formed by Britain and the French Second Empire of Napoleon III, which was also supposed to disappear, has been greatly weakened, and the final pattern seems unpredictable. William IV replied, "At present, industrialization in Eastern Europe is limited to a few local areas, which are like islands in the vast sea of backward rural areas. Northern Bohemia, Lodz, Warsaw, the Dobrow Triangle, the textile factories of Nizhny Novgorod and St. Petersburg, Galicia, Romania and the oil fields of the Caspian Sea are all such industrialized islands. Moreover, these islands are not only geographically isolated, but even at the end of the 19th century, they were still not strong enough to drive the entire national economy to the critical point of takeoff. This undoubtedly had major social and strategic consequences. The vast rural population was becoming increasingly poor. They no longer had the various land obligations they had in the past, but they did not have enough opportunities to improve their situation in the towns. They did not benefit from the development of modern agriculture, nor did they benefit from the significant employment opportunities that industrialization could bring. Worse, in a poor and weak society, the state still had to impose heavy taxes on its impoverished subjects, which was tantamount to sowing the seeds of social unrest and political rebellion. This, coupled with concerns about the dynamism of the German Empire, led to a sharp increase in investment in the Russian Empire by the British, the Second French Empire, Spain, and the Netherlands, which led to a significant increase in the Russian Empire's railway mileage, industrial output, and foreign trade. The question remains whether there was a unified European economy, and the answer is probably no. If there was such a European economy, the large amount of Western European investment in the Russian Empire indicated that economic integration was developing, and the German Empire obviously played a key role in it. After all, by 1878, the German Empire currently had huge investments in Western European industry and trade, and played a major role in the Eastern European economy. Speaking of this, William IV sighed, the geographical location of the German Empire is not much better than that of the Netherlands. The only difference is that the German Empire has a larger territory in Europe, and it is surrounded by more and stronger countries, so the German Empire can be said to be unfortunate. Prince Albert's eyes flashed when he heard this, and asked, "Father is not optimistic about the situation of the German Empire." William IV shook his head. Under the curious gazes of several people, William IV said, "I am even more pessimistic about the future of the German Empire." Princess Mary asked, "Why?" "The German Empire is currently rising so fast. After the Netherlands left Europe, it has been far ahead. Even Britain has a major sense of crisis. It is just around the corner for the German Empire to catch up with Britain. What's more, the German Empire is on the European continent. It has greater room for development and expansion. Why would Father not be optimistic about the German Empire?" Looking at Princess Mary's inquiring eyes, William IV's heart suddenly surged. "There is an old saying in my country in my previous life that a child's character and way of doing things can be seen in his 80s when he is 3 years old. It means that a child's character and way of doing things will not change much even when he grows up. This is because the nature of a child is not hidden in front of you. When he grows up, he will hide himself and others can't see him." From the questions of several children just now, it can be seen that Albert is more upright and kingly, Anna is a side door and likes to watch, Jacques likes to get to the bottom of things, and Mary has a built-in questioner and has the function of asking and answering questions. At present, it seems that the most politically talented of these 4 children is the youngest daughter, Princess Mary. William IV couldn't help but smile bitterly for this. "Grand Duchess of Kenya, I don't know if in the future when the world enters the colonies and becomes a country, if I am still alive at that time, let these children manage their own countries. Will Princess Mary in front of me be the most successful? Thinking about it makes me look forward to it. It seems that it's time to give them more homework, especially Albert. It's not enough to just keep talking about a kingly way. To manage so many territories in the Netherlands, an all-powerful Dutch king must be able to handle it." But just as he thought of this, Prince Albert asked, "Father, if the Netherlands is at war with Britain now, it seems that we may be most advantageous on land. However, due to the existence of submarines, the sea does not belong to the British Navy. In fact, if it is operated properly, we can defeat Britain at its strongest point by taking them by surprise, which will make the other side surrender. So I think the Netherlands can think in this direction." William IV was stunned. "Okay, I take back my guess. The eldest son is still the best." Chapter 650, The Rise of the East and the Decline of the West. 1878, the Dutch Socialist Party-supported Dutch United Industrial Group announced at its Melbourne headquarters that its inventor Graham had invented a generator. Graham and Debretz also successfully invented a high-voltage transmission line. They also announced that they had built 2 coal-fired power plants in Melbourne and had begun to use electricity within the Dutch United Industrial Group. At the same time, the Dutch United Industrial Group also announced that it had invented a pump that was convenient for irrigating farmland, and claimed that the function of the pump would reduce the chances of oil crops in Australia and even the entire Netherlands facing drought, which would have a significant impact on the cultivation of world food. For this reason, the Royal Netherlands Academy of Sciences sent a group of experts to visit the group. Finally, the Royal Netherlands Academy of Sciences announced that it recognized the validity of several Dutch invention patents and praised the inventions of the Dutch United Industrial Group. Not only the Royal Netherlands Academy of Sciences, but also scientists and politicians from all over the world have turned their attention to Melbourne, the Netherlands. Because of the generation of electricity and pumps, no one would think it was just a trivial matter, especially the British Empire. The thought that the Netherlands might get a better harvest of grain by solving the problem of drought and thus increase its strength was definitely not good news for Britain. At present, the three major political parties in the Netherlands, the Liberal Party, the Christian Party and the Socialist Party, are respectively tied to the Dutch East India Company, the Dutch Far East Group and the Dutch United Industrial Group. The rise of the Socialist Party surprised everyone, and the rise of the Dutch United Industrial Group was even more fierce. Naturally, the other two parties and two major companies were unwilling to accept this. On June 28, 1878, Edison, an inventor under the Dutch East India Company, announced that he had invented the electric light. At present, he is preparing to conduct large-scale electric light tests in some parts of Sydney. If successful, the whole nation will enter the era of electric lights if there is sufficient electricity support. Well, the scientists in the Netherlands are too fierce. There was Graham in front and Edison in the back. Is the Dutch Far East Group, an ally of the Liberal Party, going to do it? Sure enough, the Dutch Far East Group, an ally of the Liberal Party, announced its own important countermeasures. The Dutch Far East Group announced that the group has achieved the expansion of the application scope of driving conveyor belts to drive steamships, power machinery and engines. The key new things are the invention of machinery and power equipment. The former is to manufacture machines, steam hammers, pile drivers and other power equipment. These 8 people are freed from heavy manual labor. In other words, the Far East Group began to use power to complete the innovation of many industrial machinery work of the group. Mechanization seems to have reached the highest level of progress. The founder of the Far East Group in this field is Henry Maudsley's student Halt, who invented the metal lathe. Halt is currently the dynamic leader of the group. The Dutch Far East Group invented the use of mechanical power to replace the heavy work of humans, which immediately made people feel high-end, but the Socialist Party would not let its reputation, which it had accumulated with great difficulty, be robbed by others. On July 1, 1878, the Dutch United Industrial Group announced that its inventor Serois invented the open hearth steel-making method, which shocked the world. The iron mining industry is mainly concentrated in Luxembourg-Lorraine, northern Spain, northern Sweden, and Kryvyi Rih in Ukraine, which are rich in iron ore. The blower was continuously improved and eventually developed into the Bessemer converter built by Sir Henry Bessemer in Sheffield. The development of the steel age provided high-quality and low-cost steel for the railway age. Steel was also widely used in bridges, ships, building structures and weapons. Now the Netherlands has improved steel forging, making it the world leader in steel forging, which is a very meaningful thing. If it continues like this, the Netherlands' share of the world's steel industry will definitely increase greatly. You must know that after the invention of the blower, European countries began to have their own steel industry. Britain, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Sweden, Spain, the United States, etc. all have the most advanced steel industry. Now the Netherlands has taken the lead because of the emergence of open hearth steel making. This is another major event for the Netherlands to break the world's industrial pattern. In addition, the Netherlands has just made several world-changing inventions, and the Netherlands' leading global pattern in the electrical age seems to have been formally established. Britain's steam revolution has become a thing of the past. The Netherlands replaced it, become the new leader of world economic change. No one would think that the Netherlands is not competent. At this time, even in the extremely arrogant London, it has been beaten to a pulp by a series of new inventions in the Netherlands in recent years. This time, the Dutch electric lights led by Edison, electricity replaced the workers' mechanical work, and the emergence of high-voltage transmission lines. This combination is enough to make steam power usher in the most powerful opponent. And with the addition of telephones, telegraphs, radio, etc., these are enough to show that the electrical age seems to have a wider range of effects. It is said that many countries such as the German Empire, the United States of America, Spain, Sweden, etc., have begun to follow the footsteps of the Netherlands and have invested large amounts of funds in the electrical industry. You must know that a country's finances are limited. If there's more here, there will be less there. If the investment in the electrical industry is reduced, then the steam will be reduced. Now countries are doing this, obviously more optimistic about the future potential of the Netherlands than the UK. So for the UK, It has to face reality. Who would have thought that 20 years ago, the British Empire, which led the global economy, would be replaced by the Netherlands and become the navigator of the global economy? The Netherlands is now the world's most advanced economically developed country. If it continues like this, no one knows what the Dutch economy will develop into, but the UK is definitely the first to face the impact. Moreover, the Netherlands has squeezed the original industrial product market of Britain to the extreme, which is absolutely unbearable for domestic employment in Britain. If it is left alone, Britain will soon be able to rely on its own local population and the colonized people in overseas colonies to support industrial products. In other words, Britain's industrial product market has become smaller, while the Netherlands has become larger. As one grows, the other shrinks, and Britain's strength will decline like a spiral. This is absolutely undesirable for the British Empire, which is currently the world's largest country in terms of comprehensive strength. The rise of the East and the decline of the West, the collision between Britain as a conservative power and the newly rising Netherlands seems to be about to collide in front of everyone. All countries in the world seem to dare not blink, for fear that after blinking, they will not have time to plan, get out, and stay out of the fight between the two countries. This includes the German Empire, Italy, Portugal, Brazil, and even Argentina, which has been an ally of the Netherlands for about 20 years. What does everyone seem to be waiting for? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.